My sister and I were twins born in the same womb, each with our flaws. I was unsightly, and she was frail. Our mother exhausted all means to procure the jade beauty pill and the nurturing body elixir for us. My sister callously drove our mother to her death and swapped the jade beauty pill that was rightfully mine. Later, she employed every trick to enchant the monarch, yet only managed to become a low-ranking concubine. I bore 5 sons consecutively for the Qin ruler. And ruling from behind the curtain, I became the true hegemon of the realm. My mother gently brushed her fingertips over the corner of my eye. Take the jade beauty pill, and my Vivian will grow into a great beauty. When the time comes, I shall surely find you a good match. I obediently swallowed the pill and waited for a long while. My mother let out a puzzled only to hear Octavia, who was adjusting her sleeve mirror nearby, burst into uncontrollable laughter, glancing sideways. I saw Octavia, already stunningly beautiful, becoming even more radiant and captivating. Sister, what you took was a fertility pill, she said with a smug smile, covering her lips lightly. Only beauties like me can truly make the most of the jade beauty pill. Mother's face turned crimson as she pressed her chest tightly, trembling with rage. Octavia and I are twins born from the same pregnancy, a face of striking ugliness, with a terrifying blood-red spot the size of a fingernail on the eyelid. Frail since childhood, already 17 years old yet still without the arrival of menstruation, mother blamed herself for all the faults, and in her later years, she exhausted all means to find these 2 utterly unique miraculous medicines. Overjoyed, she hoped to see in her lifetime my blood spot fade away and my appearance restored, with Octavia healthy and blessed with abundant descendants. The joy my mother felt just moments ago was now matched only by her despair. Under my grief-stricken and helpless gaze, my mother coughed up a mouthful of blood and died on the spot. After a brief moment of panic, Octavia thrust forward her noticeably enlarged, proud bust. The pursuit of beauty knows no bounds. Since the medicine was meant for us anyway, what's wrong with me choosing one for myself? 7 days later, my mother was laid to rest, with her stunning beauty. Octavia caught the eye of the King of Chu and was being sent to the palace adorned in red and finery. Dressed in plain white mourning clothes to bury my mother, Octavia suddenly lifted the carriage curtain and looked my way. Our eyes met as her delicate finger pointed at me. You, take off those ill-omened clothes and come serve me in the palace. Ignoring the mocking gazes of others, I publicly removed my mourning garments and obediently walked to Octavia's side. Yes, my beauty, that night, in the Reed Palace. Octavia ordered me to serve in the inner chamber. Listening to how the King of Chu was intoxicated by her beauty and how they indulged in passion throughout the night, until the break of dawn, the King of Chu went to court, and only then did Octavia summon me, who had also stayed awake all night. Her black hair was disheveled, her eyes filled with emotion, her lips were crimson, and her graceful body was covered in vivid, ambiguous marks, thanks to your jade beauty pill, sister. The King of Chu couldn't get enough of me last night. He wanted to crush me into his very bones. Exhausted, Octavia's gaze was hazy, yet she smiled with unparalleled allure. With this peerless beauty, I will surely reign supreme in the harem and become the most honored woman in the land of Chu. Yet I believe that even if fate grants wealth and glory, one must also have the fortune to enjoy them. With a beauty as peerless as yours, you're bound to achieve your heart's desire. Suppressing my overwhelming hatred, I flattered her against my conscience. A mischievous and malicious glint suddenly flashed across Octavia's triumphant face. Sister's fertility pills seem quite remarkable too. What if I gift you to the eunuchs? Could you bear children for those rootless creatures as well? The thought of those eunuchs, who couldn't even control their urination and reeked of foul odors, sent a chill of disgust through me. I merely lowered my head in silence when Octavia lifted my chin with her fingertip. With this face of yours, no man would want you. Only a true sister would care about your lifelong happiness. Though eunuchs are incomplete, they can barely be considered men. What do you say? Hearing Octavia utter the words true sister, I felt both hatred and the urge to laugh. She had been frail since childhood, and our mother always treasured her like a jewel. Yet no sooner had she driven our mother to her grave than she went to seduce the King of Chu. For over a decade, I too had doted on this delicate and beautiful younger sister. If she wants it and I have it, I'll give her everything I can. It's no exaggeration to say that when our mother isn't by Octavia's side, I, as the eldest sister, serve as half a mother to her. Yet I never dreamed that Octavia, whom we've doted on and cherished since childhood, would grow into such a selfish, malicious, and spoiled ingrate. Then I'll trouble my sister to take the trouble of finding me a handsome-looking young eunuch, I said, lowering my eyes. You look utterly despicable. How amusing. Octavia clapped her hands in laughter, daintily flicking away the tears of mirth at the corners of her eyes with jade-like fingertips. Don't worry, sister, every fair-faced eunuch in the royal palace is yours. Half a month passed in this manner. The King of Chu doted on Octavia excessively. Keeping her by his side every night, she quickly became the target of envy among the palace women. Aside from occasionally punishing or humiliating me to vent her frustrations, she hardly had time to spare for me. Seeing Octavia's enduring favor, the queen who had been waiting to profit from the situation could no longer sit still. I was just about to pledge allegiance when I accidentally learned of the Qin King's inspection tour to Chu territory. A thought flashed through my mind like fireworks. The world is now divided into 6 parts, with feudal states, all honor the Qin state, paying regular tributes, joining in battles, and defending the Qin royal family. The young king of Qin once traveled incognito and was prophesied by a physiognomist to have few descendants. If you truly possess such abilities, how could you fail to discern that I am the ruler of a kingdom? Though he executed the physiognomist in a fit of rage, now past 40 as the supreme sovereign, he still has only one princess as his offspring. I suddenly don't want to kill Octavia anymore, but rather make her life a living hell in another way. She held herself in high regard, believing her beauty alone could elevate her to the most noble position. Then I shall deliberately rise with this face she despises and this pregnant body, making her kneel at my feet in regret. The Qin King's inspection at this time is heaven helping me. Though he is decisive in killing and capricious in temper, he yearns for an heir but cannot obtain one. Though I seem plain and lowly, I can make the Qin King's descendants flourish. On the night the Qin King entered the palace, the Chu King held a grand state banquet of extreme extravagance. Under the bright moon, the lingering melodies of silk and bamboo instruments filled the air. The Chu King and Queen sat together at a table below the Qin King, while Octavia, merely a concubine, was seated almost at the palace hall's entrance. Despite the distance, Octavia made no attempt to hide her infatuation, gazing at the King of Qin with undisguised adoration. His sharply defined features exuded an intimidating aura, and his towering stature only amplified his aggressive presence, though his regular features couldn't be called handsome. He was the kind of man whose mere glance could make women weak in the knees. Seizing the moment, I whispered softly, "Your Majesty is the ruler of all under heaven, mighty and majestic. Were I to become your woman in this lifetime, I could die without regret." Octavia's face was full of possessiveness as she gave me a cold glance. "How dare an ugly wretch like you covet the king, even if you spread your legs before him? He'd only see you as a human sow." Incapable of stirring the slightest interest, with that, she gracefully ascended the palace steps. This humble concubine notices His Majesty seems disinterested in tonight's performances. I boldly offer myself to present a dance for the king's entertainment. Under the Chu King's icy, wrathful gaze, Octavia performed a slight curtsy, showcasing her stunning figure and snow-white skin to perfection. Approved. The King of Qin waved his sleeve with effortless grace. Octavia's dance was enchantingly graceful, breathtakingly beautiful enough to topple cities and ruin states. A flicker of interest flashed through the King of Qin's unfathomably dark eyes. "If your Majesty does not disdain, let Octavia attend by your side." The Queen of Chu seized the opportunity to send this thorn in her side to the King of Qin, the woman he fancied. The King of Chu dared not refuse. After the state banquet concluded, Octavia was carried to the starlit pavilion where the King of Qin temporarily resided. I didn't even need to see it with my own eyes to imagine how excited and proud she must be. Tonight she would cling to the most noble man in the world, hook her arms around his neck, and ascend several peaks with him. In the Reed Palace, I took up a brush to carefully trace the red markings on my eyelids. A vivid pomegranate flower blooms upon porcelain white skin, as if blossoming in snow. Breathtakingly beautiful, by the time the King of Qin arrived, I had already accidentally fallen into the clear liquid pool. Drenched clothes clung to my body, shivering uncontrollably when the wind blew. Bare-chested, he stepped into the water stride by stride, his bronze muscles distinctly defined. Under the moonlight, he appeared both powerful and scorching. Clutching my chest, I frantically waded through the water and scrambled up the jade steps. A large hand clamped onto my shoulder like an iron vice, his hard masculine body pressing tightly against my back. In that instant, I felt both ice and fire coursing through me. "You tempted me, why leave?" The King of Qin's voice was deep and magnetic. Trembling with fear, I slipped out of his embrace. "Though this humble servant adores your Majesty, I refuse to serve through mere physical charm. I seek neither fame nor status, only the bond of fate, should destiny allow us to meet again. I shall willingly become your Majesty's woman." Braving the biting cold wind, I had barely returned to Jinjia Palace when Octavia was sent back by the King of Qin's order right after. Such is the nature of men, readily available beauties become dull, while the unattainable ones linger in their thoughts. Octavia, experiencing her first setback, raged through Jinjia Palace all night, smashing objects. Impossible, impossible. Could it be that the king has grown too old to perform his duties? Just as she was utterly perplexed, she heard the Chin King searching the entire palace for the world's most beautiful woman with pomegranate blossom eyes. "You go search for her too." Octavia ground her silver teeth, her face twisted with venom. "I'd like to see who else besides me deserves to be called the world's most beautiful woman by the king." Standing aside with my hands folded, I secretly laughed to myself. Octavia probably forgot, we share the same mother, if she's devastatingly beautiful. How could I be far behind? After transforming the bloodstain on my eyelid from something hideous to magical, my beauty surpassed hers without question. The entire Chu palace was turned upside down, yet they couldn't find the beauty the Chin King longed for. Rumors gradually spread that what fell into the clear pool that night wasn't a beauty, but a celestial maiden. Even the Chin King couldn't help but wonder if I was merely an illusion from his drunken stupor. During this time, Octavia had long been forgotten by him, cast to the winds. Estimating the timing was about right, I coincidentally encountered the Prince of Chin again when he visited the plum garden at night. Pillowed amidst a sea of flowers, we tumbled through clouds and rain, remaining sleepless the entire night. In the height of passion, the Prince of Chin recklessly revealed another benefit of me taking the fertility pill. That's what makes men crave for more, unable to resist. Before dawn, when the King of Chin was sound asleep, I quietly gathered my clothes and tiptoed away. Some time passed after that. By day, I was an ugly low-ranking maid in the Jinjia Palace. After nightfall, I become the Moon Palace fairy cherished by the King of Chin. They say a wife is not as good as a concubine, and a concubine is not as good as a stolen love. The King of Chin grew increasingly addicted to me, favoring me every night. How could he still remember the beauty the Queen of Chu conveniently gifted him? And since Octavia had been given to the King of Chin, she was no longer the woman of the King of Chu. She has no path forward, and regrets leave no way back. After guarding an empty chamber in the Reed Palace for a month without name or status, I was nearly driven mad. On this afternoon, at the heart of the lake pavilion, Octavia, consumed by resentment, sought another way to torment me. "Sister, I've found that delicate eunuch you fancy for you," she beckoned, and a eunuch with a pale complexion and sharp, monkey-like features immediately stepped forward. He's still the chief eunuch, with both looks and status. It's just, he has some peculiar methods and preferences when it comes to women. Octavia covered her lips and laughed as she spoke. "Sister, you must live well in the eunuch's quarters, so as not to waste all the effort I've put into finding this match for you." My heart sank as I whispered to Octavia, "Though it's not a proper grand wedding, we should still prepare the dragon phoenix candles, the red bridal veil, and the nuptial wine." Octavia curled her scarlet lips into a smile. "Very well, you go and prepare. Tonight I shall come to claim my celebratory wine." Returning to Jinjia Palace, I immediately painted pomegranate blossoms on my cheeks and hurried to Pixing Pavilion to seek the Chin King's protection, but halfway there, darkness suddenly engulfed my vision, and I collapsed unconscious to the ground. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself tightly bound and thrown in the Queen's chambers. The Queen's face darkened. "Name your lover, and I'll grant you an intact corpse." Octavia's charming features twisted with venom. "Vivian's illicit pregnancy defiled the royal harem. She deserves execution." Dazed, I hung outside the heavenly sacrifice hall. The king and queen summoned the entire palace to witness the punishment as a warning to all. Watching the King of Chin stride over with sweeping steps, I gazed at him through tearful eyes and silently mouthed the word, "My king." "What crime has she committed?" the King of Chin demanded through clenched teeth, pointing at me. "This vile woman has been secretly involved with a palace servant and is already 1 month pregnant. She remains unrepentant, refusing to name her lover." Octavia continued with a vicious laugh, disregarding the king's increasingly terrifying expression. "She should be disemboweled as a public example and executed by slow slicing." "How dare you!" the King of Chin roared in thunderous fury, slapping Octavia to the ground. "While I stand here, who dares lay a finger on her or the child?" Octavia covered her heavily swollen cheek, aggrieved and incredulous. "Your Majesty, why are you protecting this wretch? Could it be?" Her words came to an abrupt halt, as if struck by a sudden thought. Octavia's expression twisted into something ferocious, muttering to herself, "No, it can't be." Even Queen Chu wore a face of terrified panic, trembling uncontrollably. I'm afraid she also realized that the King of Chin was the adulterer they claimed deserved to die 1,000 deaths. The King of Chin strode toward me with steady, powerful steps. Untying the hemp rope that bound my wrists, I instantly leaned into his embrace. Casting a lingering glance at Octavia kneeling on the ground, I saw her brows tightly furrowed, her gaze like venom fixed on my face and abdomen. A strange smile suddenly appeared on Octavia's ferocious face. "This vile woman has been pretending and deceiving the king all along." There's clearly an ugly red patch on her eyelid, not the natural red blossoms of a fairy. The Chin King's sharp gaze instantly fell upon my eyelids. "Your Majesty, what Octavia says is true." I raised my eyes and gazed at him tenderly. Before meeting you, I was just a palace maid with an ugly red patch on my eye, but ever since your majesty entered the Chu palace, I suddenly transformed into this appearance. Fearing that such an anomaly might cause panic, I've tried my best to conceal it with rouge, yet every time I see your majesty, the pomegranate flowers on my face grow more vivid. I lowered my head with shyness and timidity. It wasn't until they said I was with child that I remembered the pomegranate's symbolism of fertility. Perhaps all of this was heaven's guidance. The king of Qin wore a skeptical expression at my account of the divine vision, but when his gaze fell upon my belly, his eyes suddenly softened with tenderness. Nonsense, Octavia pointed at me, gnashing her teeth. The king is the sovereign of all under heaven. How could a lowly wretch like you dare deceive him? Before I could speak, she aggressively cut in. This concubine's sincere heart fears only that your majesty might fall for this vile woman's treacherous scheme. I beg your majesty to grant me a chance to prove it. Fetch a basin of water for verification, and the truth shall be revealed. The king of Qin swept his gaze across the crowd and ultimately did not defend me. Granted. Soon, a palace attendant brought a basin of water and raised it high overhead. To verify the truth, the king of Qin personally wet a handkerchief and wiped the pomegranate flower pigment from my eyelids. Catching a glimpse of Octavia trembling with excitement and pride from the corner of my eye, I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Little does she know, though I've spent these days fixing the color of this pomegranate flower, it wasn't painted on with a brush. Rather, on the night the Prince of Qin entered the palace, I used a needle dipped in pigment to prick it into my skin. Her flower is indeed real, the Prince of Qin declared, unfolding the handkerchief to show the crowd. No trace of pigment remained, while the pomegranate blossom on my eyelids still bloomed vividly. These days, to prevent Octavia from noticing, I've been using rouge to conceal it. Only when meeting the king of Qin would I wash it off, revealing the pomegranate flower pattern. So Octavia naturally assumed this flower was temporarily drawn to deceive the king of Qin. Catching the triumphant curve at my lips, she completely lost her mind. You vile wretch, what trick did you use, my king? Summon the royal physicians, they'll surely uncover what deceit this harlot employed to fool you. How dare you call her a whore? The king of Qin kicked Octavia in the chest. How could you dare to insult my woman like this? Still unsatisfied, he shouted, guards, give this madwoman 20 lashes on the spot. 20 lashes would be enough to take Octavia's life. Though I hated her to the core, I didn't want her to die immediately. Gently stroking the king of Qin's chest to soothe him, I pleaded for Octavia's mercy. Your majesty, today your servant brings joyous news, and it is inauspicious to shed blood. We should accumulate blessings for the child in my womb, perhaps spare her life. So be it, as you wish. The king of Qin held me tightly as if treasuring a priceless jewel. You are the pomegranate blossom heaven bestowed upon this lonely king, destined to bring me abundant descendants and great fortune. With that declaration, the king of Qin raised his arm and proclaimed, from this day forth, she shall be my Lady Vivian, second in status only to the Queen of Qin. The Queen of Qin bore the king's only princess, thus elevating her status as the most honored woman through her daughter's prestige, and now that I'm with child, my status is second only to the queen's. If I can successfully bear the king of Qin's son, the queen's position will surely be within my grasp. Congratulations to the king of Qin, congratulations to Lady Vivian. The crowd knelt and cheered in unison. With a single thought from him, I transformed from the lowliest palace maid into someone even the king and queen of Chu must regard with caution. Looking at those fearful faces, I experienced for the first time in my life the benefits of power. The king of Qin allowed me to reside with him in the starlit pavilion, an unparalleled favor and honor. I returned to change into luxurious garments, then proceeded to the reed palace surrounded by palace attendants to witness Octavia's punishment. The old matron mustered all her strength to strike her proud, exquisitely beautiful face with bamboo paddles. How dare you forget your place? How dare you speak insolently before the mistress? Soon, Octavia's delicate cheeks and red lips were swollen beyond recognition. Her gaze, previously unfocused, suddenly darkened as she spotted me through the crowd. She mumbled something indistinct under her breath. I walked over leisurely, bent down, and whispered in her ear, "Is this the life you wanted? As your elder sister, I'll personally teach you this lesson. The beauty you're so proud of is actually worthless." The king of Qin originally planned to depart for his homeland these days, but the journey was delayed because I was with child. He places great importance on the child I'm carrying. Worried about the long and arduous journey back to Qin, he insisted on waiting until I completed 3 months of pregnancy and the fetus stabilized before setting out. As the date of return approached, Octavia could no longer sit still. She had already been given to the king of Qin. Even if the king of Chu had once been fond of her, he could no longer keep her in the Chu palace. Moreover, Because Octavia had repeatedly schemed against and insulted me, the King of Qin detested her deeply and never included her in the list of people to bring back to Qin. Once the ceremonial procession returns to Qin, Octavia will have only two options left, either be ordered to commit suicide or become a nun. Madam, I heard Octavia tried another trick to seduce the king. This time she pretended to be a lotus fairy in the pond. But the king didn't even let her approach, he just ordered her thrown back into the lake. Octavia has always been extremely confident in her beauty, which is why she becomes more persistent the more she's rejected by the King of Qin. As I listened to the palace attendants report, I could vividly picture her making coquettish gestures only to be thrown back into the water in utter disarray. This Octavia is truly foolish. The king has entrusted all matters regarding the return to Qin to you. My lady, if she genuinely wishes to follow back to Qin, she'd be better off pleading with you. Instead, she spends her days annoying the king. Doesn't she fear he might draw his sword in a fit of rage and end her life? I knew the time had come. Go and inform the king that I've been suffering from morning sickness lately and wish to entrust all arrangements for our return to Qin to his chief eunuch, Amen. Now I'm giving Octavia a chance. It's up to her whether she can seize it. Within a few days, palace servants came to report, Madam, Octavia has been spending nights in eunuch Amon's quarters these past few evenings. It's said that last night was especially brutal. Octavia's screams lasted from dusk till dawn without ceasing. I couldn't help but curl my lips into a smile. These eunuchs, physically incomplete and having witnessed countless filthy deeds while enduring endless humiliation, grow increasingly twisted in mind the higher they climb in position. Octavia must have known this would happen, which is why she forced me to submit to the chief eunuch of the Chu royal palace. She even told me to live well with him and bear his children. Who would have thought she'd now voluntarily offer herself to the most powerful eunuch by the Qin king's side, serving him with utmost satisfaction. Amen added her name to the list of those returning to the Qin palace. When bringing the roster for my review, they always cautiously glance up to gauge my expression. Afraid I might still hold a grudge, that in a fit of anger I'd strike Octavia's name from the list, I casually tossed the roster back. Proceed as you've arranged. Octavia harbors deep hatred for me. Keeping her close indeed carries risks, requiring constant vigilance against her retaliation. But if we simply let her die or become a nun so easily, how could we face our mother who is literally angered to death by Octavia? Throughout the journey back to the Qin palace, neither I nor my personal attendants relaxed for a single moment. Suspicious incense on garments, seemingly harmless yet mutually conflicting ingredients, every potential hazard that could affect the child has been meticulously eliminated by us. By the time the ceremonial procession of the Qin king arrived at Yi City, on the verge of entering the imperial capital of Qin, my belly had swelled prominently, with the fetus already over 7 months along. Madam, your previous carriage has been damaged. Please proceed to another one. The young eunuch, seeing me struggle slightly as I hunched to exit the carriage, immediately raised his hand to assist. I had just placed my hand on his forearm when suddenly a tremendous force struck from behind. My feet stumbled violently beneath me. As I fell from the carriage, I twisted my body to land on my shoulder and elbow first, rolling with my arms protecting my belly. After hitting the ground, it felt like there wasn't a single part of my body that didn't ache. Amid the terrified and frantic cries for help from the young eunuch and other palace attendants, the excruciating abdominal pain blurred my consciousness. In my dazed state, I seemed to see Octavia's face twisted with excitement, a 7-month-old fetus, endless streams of blood, and increasingly violent abdominal pain. Everyone's expressions were utterly grim. Even I myself thought this child probably couldn't be saved. The King of Qin was so furious outside the delivery room that he beheaded several palace maids in his rage, until the baby's cry pierced the sky. Every palace maid's face showed the joy of surviving a disaster. The old nanny brought the swaddled baby to me and said, "Congratulations, madam, it's a young prince." Before the delivery room was even tidied up, the King of Qin couldn't wait and rushed in. He lifted the child high with his arms, his expression caught between tears and laughter. This humble king finally has a son. Hearing his son's weak, kitten-like cries, the King of Qin felt his heart ache unbearably. His face darkened instantly, and he immediately summoned the imperial physician. The young master was born prematurely. Could there be any complications? The physician knelt in fearful reverence and replied, "There is a folk saying, 7 months thrive, 8 months struggle. From my observation, the young master is merely frail and weak. With no immediate danger to his life, with proper care, he will surely grow up safely." Overjoyed by the news, the King of Qin declared, "The young master shall be named Harlan, as my son. He is destined for both fortune and longevity." When Octavia was brought before me, she saw me gently rocking the cradle with delight, inside of which lay Harlan. The king of Qin's most beloved son, her gaze fell upon his mother and child with hatred. I never expected the pregnancy pill to be so potent. Even after you were thrown from the carriage, you still managed to deliver the child safely. I smiled faintly, couldn't be bothered to explain to her. Besides the pregnancy pill's solid fetus-protecting effects, I also used a self-sacrificing posture to shield the baby during the fall, leaving my left shoulder and upper arm weak to this day. Guards, force the medicine down her throat, I commanded loudly, seeing the little eunuch carrying a bowl of dark, murky medicine with a sinister expression as he approached her. Octavia shrank back in fear. No, don't poison me. Octavia finally yielded to me, prostrating on the ground and kowtowing repeatedly. Sister, I beg you to spare me. I wasn't the one who pushed you down. I know it wasn't you who pushed me. But didn't you also fan the flames from behind? I smiled faintly. This debt will be settled when we return to the palace. I'll naturally settle it with her then. Don't worry, this medicine won't kill you. Knowing you'll never experience motherhood in this lifetime, I specially had the imperial physician prepared so you could personally feel what childbirth is like. After the bowl of medicine was forcibly poured down her throat, Octavia soon bled profusely from below, writhing in agony as her body curled and stiffened alternately. She screamed with heart-rending anguish, clenching her fists and pounding the ground violently. At the peak of her torment, her eyes burned crimson. Vivian, I swear you'll die a wretched death. I glanced at her dismissively. Whether you have that capability or not, I don't know. What I do know is that you'll first experience a living hell in my hands, upon returning to the Qin royal palace. I saw the Queen of Qin waiting respectfully at the palace gates with a young maiden in her early teens. The King of Qin joyfully descended from his imperial carriage. My Princess Zara, let your father have a good look at you. Princess Zara spread her arms and fluttered into the king's embrace like a lively butterfly, cooing. Zara missed father so much. Witnessing the scene, I instinctively tightened my embrace around Harlan in my arms. The Qin prince had few heirs and placed utmost importance on familial bonds. His affection and regard for Princess Zara would not diminish by even half because of this son. Thinking this, I subconsciously raised my eyes to look at the Queen of Qin. Coincidentally, she also cast a sharp glance in my direction, her eyes filled with nothing but disdain and a challenge. Oh, so this is the little brother. Princess Zara suddenly lunged at me without warning, startling me into instinctively dodging sideways while holding Harlan. Her eyes instantly welled up with tears as she looked at me pitifully, then at the King of Qin. Zara likes the little brother. Does Lady Vivian not like Zara? She was just frightened by ill-intentioned villains. It's definitely not that she dislikes you. The King of Qin verbally defended me, but his gaze already carried a hint of displeasure. My heart suddenly sank as I heard Zara speak with innocent frankness. Oh, the little brother is so small and frail, not at all resembling our tall and heroic father. He doesn't look like father's child one bit. The moment Zara uttered these words, the King of Qin's expression changed instantly. Weeping pitifully, I held Harlan and knelt heavily before Princess Zara. I beg your highness to show mercy and spare us mother and child. The King of Qin frowned deeply. What do you mean by this? This concubine has discovered that the person who caused my carriage accident and premature birth was acting under Princess Zara's orders. The princess is still young and has always enjoyed Your Majesty's exclusive favor. Suddenly facing the prospect of siblings, she might have momentarily lost her way. Therefore, I ordered the palace staff to keep silent and maintain secrecy. With each word I spoke, my voice grew more choked with emotion. I never imagined Princess Zara would be so intolerant of me and the child, even going so far as to imply before Your Majesty that Harlan might not be your son. The Queen of Qin's face darkened. This is absolute nonsense. Princess Zara's eyes flashed with panic. Father, this woman has ill intentions and is slandering me. Until I presented the palace servants they secretly contacted along with the evidence. Both the Queen of Qin and Princess Zara's expressions changed. Facing the terrifying gaze of the King of Qin, Princess Zara tugged at his robe and pleaded desperately, Father, I just didn't want to share your affection with others. I know I was wrong. I am deeply disappointed in you. The King of Qin said coldly as he turned away and pulled his robe free. You're merely a daughter. Even without Harlan, the imperial power of Qin would never be yours. I truly don't understand what you and your mother hope to gain by causing this scene. Summon someone. Choose an auspicious day and quickly send Princess Zara to the state of Zhao for a political marriage. The King of Qin, who had been a loving father just moments ago, now ignored the desperate pleas of the queen and his daughter, dragging me away with long strides. Octavia, who was involved in this incident, was also punished, demoted from a beauty to a low-ranking palace servant. I heard she was even sent to serve in the Queen of Qin's palace, when Harlan was 3 months old. Princess Zara married far away to the state of Zhao for a political alliance. My daughter is leaving. May my royal father and mother take care of yourselves and enjoy long-lasting health. Princess Zara, dressed in a long trailing crimson wedding gown, knelt on the ground and bowed deeply to the king and queen of Qin who came to see her off. The king of Qin stood with his hands behind his back on the city wall, his tall figure inexplicably exuding a sense of desolation and sorrow. His anger subsided, but in his heart, he couldn't bear to part with his beloved daughter who had been doted on and pampered as she grew up. With her only daughter married far away, the Queen of Qin fell ill and remained bedridden after returning to the palace from the wedding. Leveraging the King of Qin's affection for their daughter and his sense of guilt towards her, the queen quickly secured the king firmly by her side. For over a full month, the King of Qin spent nearly every waking moment by the queen's side during her convalescence until her health gradually improved. Everyone says the king and queen have shared a deeply affectionate marriage for years. It seems I'm falling out of favor. Even the finest provisions that used to be allocated first to our Fuyuan palace eunuchs are now being redirected, with all matters requiring prior approval from the Queen of Qin. Octavia, who had been promoted to chief maid of the queen's retinue, came swaggering before me to flaunt her newfound status. Vivian, when the rabbits die, the hounds are cooked. I'll be waiting to see her and this little bastard's downfall, then I'm afraid you won't live to see it. Before I could finish speaking, I couldn't help but press a handkerchief to the corner of my mouth. My stomach churned incessantly, and suppressed retching sounds escaped my throat. Under Octavia's horrified and disbelieving gaze, I chuckled lightly, as my aunt, care to guess whether the child in my womb is a son or daughter? I was pregnant again, and the Queen of Qin along with Octavia reacted as if facing a formidable enemy. They might join forces against me, but the King of Qin is no fool. Looking across the entire court and harem, he certainly understands what my son and I represent. The entire Fuyuan hall was protected as solid as a fortress, even more impenetrable than the Qin king's bedchamber. Amid the daily and nightly curses of the incompetent Qin queen and Octavia, I bore 2 children in 3 years. And each birth was a son. On the day I gave birth to my third son Maddox, the Qin queen fell ill again. This time she was genuinely angered to the point of falling ill, not pretending. The Queen of Qin's illness struck with sudden ferocity, leaving even the imperial physicians helpless. She passed away before Maddox could even reach his first month. With the Queen of Qin's death, the tree fell and the monkeys scattered. In the entire royal palace, aside from the King of Qin, no one holds a more honored position than I. I was still wondering if Octavia would throw herself into the arms of the eunuch steward Aemon again, seeking support for herself. Indeed, a palace servant came to report, "My lady, Octavia has indeed gone to seek refuge with Aemon." However, it was not to become his companion. Who knows what method she used? But she actually impersonated a young eunuch and was assigned to serve closely in the king's bedchamber. She took a risky move, and I felt an indescribable unease. Make sure to have someone keep a close eye on her to see what she's really up to. Not long after, I heard the palace maid report, "Madam, it said that the king favored a palace maid in his chamber last night. That maid disguised as a eunuch seems to be Octavia." I was suddenly stunned. The rattle I was using to play with the child also fell to the ground with a clatter. Once in the Chu palace, Octavia dressed like a celestial beauty and tried every means to seduce the Qin king, only to earn his increasing disgust and loathing. Octavia disguised herself as a eunuch to lurk by the Qin king's side. I even wondered if she had conspired with the previous dynasty to assassinate the king and usurp the throne. Little did I expect that her goal was to seduce her way to power, and Octavia actually succeeded, though the Qin king never granted Octavia even the lowest official title. He indulged in daily pleasures with her, even neglecting his morning court sessions. That day, I was feeding fish in the imperial garden. Octavia, dressed in eunuch attire, swaggered toward me, ridiculously. For a eunuch, she was accompanied by several attending palace maids and eunuchs. How rare for Lady Vivian to have the leisure to feed fish here. Octavia casually adjusted her sleeve cuffs in front of me, deliberately revealing the golden silk robe reserved only for consorts beneath her eunuch attire. Though the king hasn't officially granted me a title, all my provisions have long been no different from yours. Octavia gazed at me with contemptuous, seductive eyes, her lips curling into a proud, triumphant smile. Now by day I play the eunuch, while at night I become the king's companion, sometimes a general and page boy, sometimes hunter and widow. The king has always seen you as nothing more than a breeding tool, long since grown weary of you. Now that he's tasted my delights and experienced the exquisite pleasures I offer, why would he ever want to return to your course fare? Seeing my prolonged silence, Octavia actually thought I was either furious or frightened. She advanced toward me step by step. The wife is never as exciting as the concubine, and the concubine pales next to the thrill of the illicit. My current exalted position owes much to your teachings back then, Vivian. You've hoisted yourself by your own petard, now you can just sob and seethe under your blankets. Watching her swagger about, acting as if she owned the world, with a calm expression, I scattered the fish food in my hand into the pond, clapped my hands indifferently, and said, I'm pregnant again, and the royal physician says it's twins this time. If the king finds out, he'll probably declare another general amnesty. Under Octavia's dark and twisted gaze, I clicked my tongue and said, the king dotes on these sons too much. Over the years, he's nearly emptied all the prisons in our Qin state. Upon learning that I was carrying twins this time, the king of Qin was indeed overjoyed. Another general amnesty was declared, and ancestral temple sacrifices were held. After showing us all this, he continued to live a life of extravagance and debauchery with Octavia. Octavia was right about one thing. After all these years, as the novelty faded, all the king of Qin's favor toward me was merely treating me as a tool for bearing children, but hearing this left me utterly unfazed, because I had already experienced both the exclusive favor of a monarch and the taste of power. From beginning to end, what I wanted was power, not the favor of the king of Qin. Octavia has truly grasped the essence of captivating a ruler. Except for the day my twins celebrated their full moon, when the king of Qin made an appearance at the palace banquet, the rest of the time, the king of Qin was monopolized by her alone, never setting foot in the front court or harem again, indulging in pleasure without a thought for his duties. Octavia often flaunted her favor before me. Yesterday, the king took 2 rejuvenation pills and reveled with me all night. This morning, he drank 2 bowls of deer blood. Insisting I begged for mercy beneath him, the king of Qin, already over 50, indulged in such debauchery daily, but his strength could no longer match his desires. I immediately ordered the imperial physicians to produce more rejuvenation pills to ensure a steady supply for the king's bedchamber. At the same time, I instructed the royal kitchen to deliver 2 bowls of deer blood daily to nourish the king's health. By year's end, it will be my eldest son Harlan's 5th birthday. The palace servants and several children eagerly awaited in Fuyuan Hall, hoping the king of Qin would join to celebrate the child's birthday. No need to wait any longer, the king won't be coming. As soon as I finished speaking, the sound of bustling crowds could be heard outside. Stepping out of the palace gates, I saw Octavia being ushered in by a crowd of court attendants. She was radiant with triumph, her raised head seeming to look down upon all mortals, the moment she spotted me. Octavia lifted the phoenix seal high. Vivian, fortune shifts like a river's flow, no matter how fertile you are. Hasn't the king still promised this queen's throne to me? My brow twitched. I never imagined the Qin king could be so blinded by lust as to reach this state. He has no intention of crowning me as queen because the eldest son is still young, and the king of Qin fears I might seize the opportunity to control the court. Yet no one expected the king of Qin to become so infatuated with feminine charms, bestowing both the phoenix seal and the position of queen upon a seductive troublemaker like Octavia. Even the eunuch Aemon dared to puff out his chest in front of me. How dare you, Lady Vivian, why aren't you kneeling in the presence of the queen? I sneered. Don't be so quick to wield borrowed authority. I'll pay my respects when the official coronation takes place. Hearing this, Octavia and Aemon exchanged grave looks, fearing I might have more tricks up my sleeve. Octavia redoubled her efforts to seduce the king of Qin, urging him to hold the investiture ceremony as soon as possible. It was said the two had been inseparable for 3 days straight, never leaving their bed. The king of Qin was indeed pleased and ordered Aemon to quickly prepare the heaven worship ceremony for the queen's investiture. On the eve of the coronation, Octavia finally got her wish and moved into the Phoenix Palace. Knowing I had arrived, she couldn't wait to show off in the half-finished phoenix robe before me. From now on, I'll be the most noble woman in the Qin Palace. Vivian, you're not even worthy to carry my shoes. I looked at her with pity, even if just for a fleeting moment. It's good to have a beautiful dream. What do you mean by that? Octavia's smile froze on her face. Soon, funeral bells answered her in my stead. The wails of palace attendants echoed through the Qin palace. The king has passed away. Octavia's eyes glazed over, her expression stunned, as if she couldn't believe her ears, until court ministers rushed in, prostrating en masse before my son Harlan. By the king's decree, the crown prince is to ascend immediately. The queen dowager is to oversee state affairs and conduct the late king's funeral rites, surrounded by officials. Harlan proceeded to the grand hall. Looking at Octavia lying limp on the ground like a dead dog, I couldn't help but smirk, because you can never have your own child in this lifetime. You can only curry favor with the monarch. That's also why you fail to realize that what truly grants you enduring nobility and status is never the monarch's favor, but the tangible power firmly grasped in your own hands. Octavia hasn't held her coronation ceremony as queen yet, nor has she been recorded in the royal genealogy. Merely holding the phoenix seal doesn't make her a true queen. Thus, before the phoenix seal could even warm in her hands, it was returned. I demoted her back to the rank of beauty and confined her to the cold palace, where she could watch me govern from behind the curtain, wielding supreme power. As for Octavia, she was destined to die in desolate loneliness this lifetime. Her frail constitution never improved, compounded by the harsh conditions of the cold palace. Soon I received word that Octavia was at death's door, her lamp of life burning its last. Your Majesty the Empress Dowager, Octavia wishes to see you one last time. I happen to be free right now. Let's go take a look. In the desolate cold palace, not even 30 years old yet, Octavia already appeared emaciated and haggard. The moment she saw me, tears of remorse welled up in her dry, yellowed eyes. Sister, I was wrong. I made the wrong choice from the very beginning. Beauty is indeed a woman's weapon, but had I also possessed a fertile body, I wouldn't have fallen to such a state today. Octavia wept bitterly, filled with regret over her past actions, yet she showed no remorse for having driven our mother to her death, nor for the years of harm and humiliation she inflicted upon me. Sister, I truly know I was wrong. Octavia looked at me with hopeful anticipation, extending her hand. Before I die, could you hold me one more time? Just like when we were children, seeing her pitiful and sorrowful appearance, I walked toward her, dragging my magnificent robe that was half dragon, half phoenix, gazing at my domineering aura that overlooked the world. Octavia's eyes flashed with fear and admiration. There seemed to be some other emotion mixed in as well, fleeting and gone in an instant, just as I leaned in to embrace her. I heard the whistling sound of a sharp weapon cutting through the air, prepared for this. I redirected the hairpin. Octavia thrust at me straight into her own heart. Staring at her pained and disbelieving face, I sneered coldly. This queen has never trusted a viper's tears. In her dying moments, Octavia's gaze at me was filled with venomous resentment. Vivian, if I could do it all over again, I would make sure you regret ever being born. I casually adjusted my hair by the temple. Do you know why I brought you from Chu to the Qin Palace, and let you prance around all this time? Because I never considered you worthy as my rival. You only deserved to live a life worse than death. Octavia, you were born foolish and wicked, destined to lose against me. No matter how many times you try again, the outcome will always be the same, watching her vomit blood and die in rage. Just like how my mother had back then, I slowly exhaled the turbid breath that had weighed on my heart for years, gazing at the clear daylight outside the window. Now that Qin has become the dominant power in the world, it's time for me to gradually return the royal authority and governance to Harlan. I'm only 30 years old, with many more years ahead and countless things left to do. From now on, I shall live only for myself. Story 2. I was the burden my mother brought into her second marriage. When I was being devoured by zombies, my mother even comforted my stepsister, who had sent me to my death. Auntie doesn't blame you. It's just that Bella has a short life. My stepsister was deeply touched and called her mom. For the first time, my stepfather even laughed and said, "It's better that she's dead. She was always an outsider." Later, when I became the zombie king, I repeatedly saw my mother crying while holding my old clothes. Bella, Mom misses you so much. 1. Due to my stepfather's wrong decisions, the convoy was surrounded by a horde of zombies. All the vehicles had to work together and break through to have a chance of survival. To atone for his mistakes, my stepfather volunteered, "You all go first, I'll cover the rear." However, when the convoy was only halfway through, the zombies had already blocked the way ahead. By the time it was my stepfather's turn to drive, the zombies had broken through the side window. Their arms, covered in purple patches and black spots, reached inside. My stepsister screamed reflexively. I don't know where my mother found the courage. She swung her purse at the zombies and repelled them temporarily, but because of my stepsister's scream, more and more zombies came swarming in like a tide. My stepfather frowned. "This won't work. It'd be best if there was something to distract the zombies for us." My stepsister clasped her hands and shouted, "I know, let Sister Bella distract the zombies for us." Nonsense. My stepfather scolded her mildly. Although Bella has special abilities, she should be sent to the base and protected. She can't risk her life for the family. I instantly understood my stepsister's intentions, and a chill ran down my spine. Every time this father-daughter duo played their act, my mother would guilt-trip me into sacrificing myself. This time was no exception. "Bella, Uncle David has always provided us with food and shelter. One should know how to be grateful. Mom is begging you. Go out and help, okay?" I pursed my lips and looked at the three of them again. My stepsister's eyes were filled with naked malice and mockery. My stepfather's eyes showed blatant impatience, and my mother looked guilty and didn't dare to meet my gaze. It's always like this. To be honest, I'm tired. I opened the car door and walked into the zombie horde as they wished, letting the zombies surround me and devour my flesh and bones. The physical pain was nothing compared to the pain in my heart. I held back the urge to look back, but I only saw the vehicle speeding away. The mother-daughter pair in the back seat hugged each other tightly. In a trance, I seemed to hear the conversation in the car. "Auntie doesn't blame you. It's just that Bella has a short life." My stepsister seemed extremely touched and called her mom, for the first time, and then there was my stepfather's voice. "It's better that she's dead. She was always an outsider, too." Ho ho! I felt as if I had been chewed up by a dog. It hurt, and I was cold. As my blood drained away, the things in my field of vision kept expanding in my pupils. I could also hear the sound of car wheels in the distance. When my consciousness finally returned, I found that I wasn't dead. Well, I couldn't really say I was alive either. I just probably couldn't be human anymore. 3. I became a zombie that retained my humanity. I not only kept my previous memories and mental type abilities but also gained 2 new abilities, clairvoyance and clairaudience. The evolution happened in an instant. When my consciousness came back, my stepfather's car was still within the range of my clairvoyance. I saw that without me as a decoy, his car was in trouble again, but thanks to my sacrifice, they had caught up with the convoy. In the back seat, my mother was hugging my stepsister, her mouth moving. I pricked up my ears. "Natalie, don't be sad. Mom has always treated you like her own daughter." My stepsister nestled in her arms and nodded repeatedly. "Mom, that's great. When Sister Bella was around, I always felt uncomfortable. Now that she's gone, you're my mom and only mine." My mother replied with an excited mum. The two of them hugged even tighter. I closed my eyes and subconsciously touched my chest. Why doesn't it hurt anymore? Oh, right. I'm already dead. Zombies don't have a heartbeat. 4. I remember that ever since my father died and my mother remarried, I no longer had a home. My grandparents on both sides treated me like a hot potato, passing me back and forth. At that time, I counted the days, thinking that everything would be okay when I turned 18, I could get a job and support myself, but I never expected that my mother would come to pick me up. I heard the conversation in the living room from the utility room and couldn't believe my ears. It wasn't until my mother said firmly, "David brought it up on his own, he's a good man." At that moment, I thought my mother loved me, but when I got to that home, I realized I was wrong. My mother was a full-time housewife, and the family's monthly living expenses came from my stepfather's salary. Life was very tight. As a burden who only ate without contributing, I was naturally in a difficult situation. My stepsister said that underwear and socks couldn't be washed in the washing machine, so my mother asked me to wash them by hand. My stepfather said the food lacked flavor, so my mother asked me to take cooking courses. My mother said doing housework was tiring, so I immediately went to mop the floor and wipe the tables. I wasn't a member of that family. I was a maid. 5. As a maid, I couldn't be disrespectful. My stepsister was the master, and I wasn't even allowed to outperform her in exams. Otherwise, I would be met with her sarcasm. "What's the use of getting good grades as a burden? Be careful that you won't have the money to go to high school even if you get in. Don't expect my dad to pay for you. We're not going to be suckers." My stepfather laughed, as if he agreed. My mother blushed in embarrassment and quickly pushed me to say something to smooth things over. I was too tongue-tied and couldn't say a word. After that, I learned my lesson and controlled my scores according to my stepsister's grades. The teacher didn't know what was going on at home and just called me to the office. Looking at my grades, she sighed. "Bella, if this goes on, you definitely won't be able to get into high school. No matter what happens, you have to study hard. In the future, when you enter society, your education is the key to opening doors." I understood it all. "Teacher, my family doesn't have the money to support my studies." I remember the teacher was silent for a moment, then suddenly stood up and half-hugged me. "As long as you work hard and rank among the top 20 in the grade, I'll apply to the school to waive your high school tuition for 3 years. With those words from the teacher, I studied desperately at school. In the high school entrance exam, she got 519 points, and I got 1,018 points. I entered the high school affiliated with our school with all my tuition waived. While my stepfather had to use connections and spend money to get my stepsister into school, when I got home, my mother even blamed me. "What's the point of getting such good grades? You've embarrassed your sister so much that she doesn't dare to go out and has been angry with me for days." 6. I took a deep breath, retracted my abilities, and left with the zombie horde. From now on, these zombies, who wouldn't order me to sacrifice myself, were my kind. Zombies always migrated following the crowds. Humans could only fight back passively and mostly spent their time hiding. I liked my current identity. Among zombies, there were no complex human relationships, and there was no emphasis on blood ties. I wouldn't be in a situation where I was always sacrificed because of a biological father-daughter and a non-biological mother-daughter relationship. I was reborn in a society where all zombies were equal. In less than 3 days, I fully integrated into the group. Following them, we arrived near the No.3 base in the city. Using my clairvoyance, I saw the zombies in the front row being used as cannon fodder, so I immediately hid in the middle of the group. After a while, the group suddenly became restless. I was squeezed so hard that my feet left the ground, and I was forced to move forward. When I got closer, I understood what was going on. The gates of the base had opened, and there were rows of armed soldiers inside. Each of them held a rifle with a bayonet. Looking solemn, my heart tightened. I guessed that the No.3 base might be about to violently clear the nearby zombie horde. Sensing the danger, I grabbed 2 zombies beside me and made a hasty retreat. We retreated about 5 or 6 miles and stopped in a small forest, leaning against a tree to calm my nerves. I heard continuous ho-ho sounds behind me. Slowly turning around, I was stunned. I only grabbed 2, but why did a large group follow? I counted them one by one. There were over 50 zombies in total. After thinking for a while, I had a bold guess. To verify this idea, I summoned all the zombies within a 5-kilometer radius to this small forest. Looking at the sizable team in front of me, I finally understood the true use of my mental type abilities. 7. The next day, after getting used to my new role as the leader, an uninvited convoy came to the small forest. Yes, it was the convoy my stepfather was in. He must have regained the trust of the group and returned to the 3rd position. I was a bit silent, but the zombie subordinates behind me were eager to move. In the dim shadows of the forest, scarlet glows lit up one after another. There are zombies here. A scream officially kicked off the cruel scene. The most primitive form of hunting played out here, with humans becoming the lambs and zombies the butchers. In the chaos, I saw my mother. She had just taken out the cooking utensils from the trunk. When she heard the scream, her first reaction wasn't to run. Instead, she looked in my direction. My stepfather pulled my stepsister past her, and the 2 of them quickly got into the car. Seeing my mother looking back, they cursed, "Damn it, do you want to die, you stupid woman? Get in the car right now." My mother's eyes instantly welled up with tears. In the past, my stepfather would pretend to be modest in front of others and never speak harshly, but times had changed. He knew my mother couldn't survive without him, so his attitude became more and more casual. Now, in the apocalypse, there was no need to pretend anymore. My stepsister sat in the passenger seat, and the father-daughter pair chatted. My mother couldn't get a word in and was so anxious that her eyes turned red. I laughed silently. This was something I had to go through every day before. "Mom, can't you stand it now?" 8. The convoy ran away. I could see them heading towards the base. Following them, I happened to see the base sending people out to register them. "Does the team have any ability users? Those who do, come here to register." The No.3 base had special policies for ability users. First, they received the highest level treatment, such as a free villa, 30 pounds of food, and 50 tons of water per month. Second, the families of ability users could not only move into the villa at the lowest cost but also get priority for job positions. There were only 2 team leaders in the convoy who were ability users. The moment they left the team and stood on the right, they started enjoying the treatment of ability users. They entered a private room for isolation through a fast track. As for ordinary people, they had to stand in line and go through a long registration process. When it was my stepfather's group's turn, he lied to the registrar. "I have a daughter who is an ability user. She went to deal with the zombie horde on the way and disappeared. Can you help me find her?" The registrar had obviously never encountered such a situation before. After consulting the leader in person, he agreed to my stepfather's request and allowed them to temporarily enjoy the treatment of ability user families. "If your daughter hasn't been found after a month, it means she's dead. At that time, we will immediately stop the benefits you're enjoying." My stepfather bowed obsequiously to the registrar, waved with a smile at the others, and then made a beeline for the express lane. My stepsister followed closely behind, leaving my mother, burdened with bags, stumbling along at the end. From the base's attitude, it was easy to see that the law of the jungle would become even more severe. I shifted my attention to my zombie brethren and began to think about how to enhance my abilities and the overall strength of my kind. 9. The nearby rice mill was extremely large. Once employing thousands of workers and boasting abundant stockpiles of grain, it could serve as my main base, continuously welcoming new members, and also restrict the development of surrounding forces. The No.3 base had set its sights on this prize at the same time as me. They dispatched 4 search teams to scout the area. I sent a few zombies to spy and discovered that there were actually 8 ability users hidden among the teams. Interestingly, my stepfather was one of them. He sat next to one of the ability users and started chatting. "Are you married? If not, would you consider my daughter? Is she pretty? How about her figure? I have 5 girlfriends right now, and I wouldn't mind adding one more." My stepfather's face froze. "That many?" You're truly talented for your age. 5 is nothing. Our boss keeps a whole villa full of women, like a harem. My stepfather perked up again. You mean Boss Logan? He's truly amazing. It would be great if I could meet him. If your daughter is good looking, I could introduce you. That would be wonderful. My stepfather immediately took out his phone, showed the photos of my stepsister, and they began commenting on them together. The ability user glanced at the photos but wasn't very interested. Seeing this, my stepfather quickly found my photo and showed it to him. Then take a look at this daughter of mine. She's also an ability user. The other person immediately sat up straight, his eyes shining brightly. Not bad. Our boss has been looking for an ability user to be his main wife, hoping to have an ability user child in the future. My stepfather laughed heartily and kept saying yes. She's on a mission outside and isn't around for now. How about we exchange contact information first? The other person was even more satisfied upon hearing this. Witnessing this blatant attempt to sell his daughters, I wasn't overly surprised. When I first came to my stepfather's house, he had already been sizing up the value I could bring him. As a minor, I could do chores, and when I came of age, he could collect the bride price from my future husband. Now, I was grateful that I had become a zombie and was no longer at anyone's mercy. An hour later, I met Logan, who kept a harem. He had long black hair that draped over his shoulders, with his bangs covering his eyes and eyebrows. His skin wasn't fair, and his lightning ability was extremely lethal. In just a few breaths, dozens of my zombie brethren were eliminated. He seemed truly unique. I waited until he exhausted his abilities, then summoned a group of elite zombies to severely dampen their morale. Logan quickly lost the ability to defend himself and was chased around in a sorry state. However, even so, there was still a group of people surrounding him, ready to sacrifice their lives to protect him. My stepfather was among them. In a moment of panic, he pushed the person next to him in front of him. Only when the person was within reach of the zombie's claws did he realize what he had done. Before he could explain, he found that his companions had already warily distanced themselves from him. 11. The next time I saw my stepfather, I could barely recognize him. He hadn't bathed for a long time, looking unkempt with dirty clothes. My mother followed beside him, the lines between her brows deeper, wearing a look of constant distress. I remembered that this team was the dung beetle team responsible for disposing of the base's garbage. There were 3 waves of zombies lying in wait at the garbage station they were heading to. I deliberately wanted to establish my authority and stop the No. 3 base from expanding southward. The southern area where the rice mill was located had completely fallen and become my main base. My next plan was to annex the land of the No. 2 base and drive the people towards the No. 1 base, while my mind was racing. The first wave of attacks was launched at the garbage station kilometers away. I was taken aback for a moment, but my body reacted first. With the overwhelming number of zombies, the dung beetle team wisely retreated. Sewage and garbage were casually discarded on the ground, and the people had retreated to the transport vehicles. Those who were slower were already surrounded by zombies. I looked at the woman kneeling amidst the horde of zombies. Her sallow face was filled with helplessness. Strangely, I felt a mix of satisfaction and grievance. Mom, now do you know how I felt back then? How does it feel to be abandoned? Screech. The wheels screeched against the ground. They were about to leave. I raised my head, and my vision was instantly covered in red. The third wave of zombies approached from a distance, their steps synchronized, causing obvious vibrations on the ground. It's over. There are more zombies. This isn't right. These zombies are doing this on purpose. Could it be that a zombie king has been born? Some vehicles tried to speed up and break through. The first vehicle succeeded, and the second one tried to follow suit. How could I let my stepfather go so easily? I immediately controlled all the surrounding zombies to attack, forcefully pulling him out of the driver's seat and breaking his leg. Suppressing the satisfaction at the corner of my mouth, I let my mother go and help him up. As soon as the rescue team arrived, the zombie horde left at my command. As I watched the rescue team leave, my mother suddenly turned her head. It seemed like she had spotted me. Her eyes widened suddenly, and she threw herself at the window, screaming. 12. I blanked my eyes and walked in a twisted manner, mimicking the other zombies. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her pounding on the window. Deep down, I felt an indescribable sense of glee. I even wickedly hoped to see her cry for me. If she did, I would secretly be a little nicer to her. But the next second, I heard my stepfather's scolding voice. What are you going crazy for? Sit down. My mother quickly sat down and explained. I think I saw Bella. She's an ability user. If she comes back, we can move back into the big house. Natalie won't have to worry about where her next meal is. She's already lost 20 pounds in such a short time. My stepfather. The families of ability users get good treatment. They have priority in choosing good jobs. Are you sure you saw Bella just now? My mother seemed to be recalling my current appearance and was uncertain. I think so. My stepfather became annoyed. Don't talk nonsense if you're not sure. You got my hopes up for nothing. The rescue team's vehicle drove away, and I couldn't hear the rest of the conversation clearly, nor did I want to. I was so naive to think that my mother might still have a shred of love for me. After all, ever since she remarried, she had never done a single thing for me. My stepsister and I went to the same school, and the parent-teacher meetings were on the same day. The first 2 times I asked her to come, she refused, saying that since my stepsister's grades were poor, she needed parental support more. After that, without my asking, she never attended any of my parent-teacher meetings. There was also the year of the flu when both my stepsister and I fell ill. My mother cooked a pot of plain rice porridge and fed it to my stepsister, spoon by spoon. In her room, my stepsister wasn't even grateful and insisted that my mother go out and buy lean meat porridge. I also had no appetite. It wasn't until the middle of the night, when I was starving, that I got up and drank the cold porridge. Obviously, there was no salt in the porridge, but it tasted incredibly salty and bitter. After finishing, I subconsciously washed the bowl. When I went out, I saw my mother coming out of my stepsister's room, looking exhausted. She glanced at me and said, "You're better now, right? Go back to school tomorrow and don't fall behind in your studies." I nodded and left, and this time, I just stood there in silence for a moment and then left. In the days that followed, I vengefully seized more land. My zombie army captured the No. 2 base in half a month. Although the people inside had already evacuated in advance, they weren't what I was after. The eyes of the outside world turned towards me. They formulated a plan to eliminate me, trying to nip me in the bud, but before they could act, I successfully advanced to a new stage. No, I looked no different from a human. 13. During an external rescue mission of the No. 1 base, I managed to sneak into the base. Thanks to my stepfather's penny-pinching nature, my files still showed me as missing, not dead. The identity of an ability user was extremely useful. When I expressed my interest in joining the gene optimization research project, someone immediately came to contact me. All you need to do is provide 1 test tube of blood per week, and you can enjoy the final results. I pondered for a moment. Is it possible to take a tour? Yes, but you won't be able to enter the core projects. I nodded slightly. It didn't matter if I couldn't enter, as long as I was close enough. My mental type ability could detect the situation inside, according to the remaining intelligence from the No. 2 base, the gene optimization project of the No. 1 base had once taken a wrong turn and accidentally developed a zombie evolution fluid. When zombies used it, their abilities could be comprehensively enhanced. The research team had planned to destroy it at the time, but a certain researcher in the core group insisted on keeping it, saying it could be helpful for future experiments. I was determined to get my hands on it. On the way to the research institute, the sky was overcast, and no sunlight could penetrate. Suddenly, someone rushed towards me on the road. I quickly turned around, and the person almost fell to the ground. The staff from the research institute beside me quickly asked with concern, "Are you okay?" I shook my head and looked straight ahead. "Bella, I'm your mother." The woman who spoke had messy hair hanging over her shoulders, dulled by dust and sweat. I looked at her with amusement. Her clothes were worn out, and her eyes were filled with deep exhaustion. Had the 3 of them come to the No. 1 base because my stepfather couldn't get by in the No. 3 base after killing his companions? 14. The research institute staff looked back, looking confused. I waved my hand. Ever since I got my abilities, all sorts of relatives have come out of the woodwork. Even my grandfather, who's been dead for decades, has shown up. Isn't that ridiculous? My mother finally broke down in tears. She shouted hysterically, "I'm your only real mother. The scars on your 2 legs can prove what I'm saying. When your father died and no one wanted you, I took you into our new home and took care of you. I never thought I'd raise such an ungrateful wretch. Now that you've got wings and can fly, you want to leave me behind and live a good life on your own, abandoning the parents and family who raised you for all these years? Bella, are you even human?" Gradually, people gathered around and blocked the way. The numbness on their faces began to fade. Humans were like that. Even in such a harsh environment, they still loved to watch the drama. I turned back to look at her. "I do have scars on my legs, but do you know how they got there?" She paused for a moment. "They were from scalds by boiling water." So she knew. Back then, I was 7 years old and weighed less than 40 pounds. The kettle was placed high on the gas stove, and I had to stand on a stool to reach the handle. Usually, I only boiled half a kettle of water at a time, but when my stepfather saw this, he said it was a waste of gas, so my mother filled the kettle to the brim. When the water boiled, it bubbled and gave off scalding steam. Enduring the pain, I carried the kettle to the nearby chopping board, but as I stepped down from the stool, my arm accidentally touched the hot metal of the kettle. The burn was so intense that I instinctively let go. I was too scared to cry, and my pounding heart almost drowned out the sound of my mother's footsteps. When she arrived, she immediately squatted down to check if the kettle was broken and couldn't stop scolding me. You break bowls when washing them and now you drop the kettle while boiling water. Do you have something against me? If you do, get out of my house. Don't be an eyesore here and embarrass me in front of your uncle. That's when the scars were left. I sneered inwardly. In front of the onlookers, I denied her claim. No, they were from fighting zombies. Almost all the search and rescue teams get injured and scarred to some extent. This isn't enough for you to cling to me. I turned my head. It's getting late. We should go and take the tour. The Research Institute staff was stunned for a moment, then quickly led the way. The importance the no. One base placed on the Research Institute could be seen from its construction area, which occupied almost 1/5 of the base. After passing through numerous checkpoints, we finally arrived at the project team that had been working on the research for 56 days and nights. There were quite a few projects that blood-donating ability users could visit, but none of them were crucial. To get a look at the core group, I deliberately took my time. Half an hour later, I found what I was looking for. A researcher from the core group came out, his eyes vacant. He handed the item to me, drew a tube of his own blood, and then left. The first tube of the evolution fluid, I divided among 4 of my subordinates during an external mission. For zombies that originally had no abilities evolved to have abilities. After observing for a while, there were no side effects. I felt relieved. After returning to the base, I took 1/5 of the remaining fluid, unfortunately. Its effect on me was minimal. Presumably, the dosage was too small, and I planned to go back next week. 15. Recently, every time I went out, I was bound to run into my stepsister, Natalie. It was as if she was waiting for me there. Seeing that I ignored her, she gradually grew bolder. This time, she directly sat down opposite me with her meal and started to manipulate me. Sister, I see you're always alone. No man must love you. Why don't I introduce one to you, Matthew? The captain of the search team has always wanted to marry an ability user, although he's only 1.67 meters tall. After you get married, he can stay at home and take care of the kids. If the kids inherit your abilities, they can me as their godmother. I was so angry that I laughed. Are you still sane? She immediately widened her eyes. I'm doing this for your own good, and you're scolding me. You're so arrogant. Just because you have abilities, you've lost all sense of reality. If Matthew knew what kind of person you are, he'd definitely look down on you, thinking you have high and mighty airs. But the fate of a servant, me, her cheeks puffed up in anger. When she saw the meat in my bowl, she reached out for it, just like before. This is meat, isn't it? You're so unfilial. Remember to get 2 more servings to take home later. Mom and Dad haven't had meat in ages. With a cold smile, I raised my hand and knocked her chopsticks away. Scram, in the apocalypse. Who's going to coddle you anymore? During these days, Natalie had developed a thick skin. I had just driven her away yesterday, and today I saw her chatting with someone at the door again. All the people living in this building were ability users. She clung to one of them and said, "The man is unmarried, and the woman is single. Why can't we be together? I don't know you. My name is Natalie. Now you know me. Can we get married?" Natalie, who are you to Bella? Oh, she's my sister, of course. But I'm a low-key person and never let her expose my identity to others. After the man was silent for 2 seconds, he said in a bargaining tone, "If you can find out the secret of your sister's ability advancement, I'll marry you." 16. So she would come and stick to me every now and then. I came up with a solution. I secretly found jobs for her and my mother. Natalie didn't like the idea of working, but when the job introducer said, "The house owner is an ability user, his wife passed away at the beginning of the apocalypse, and he has a 14-year-old son, the 2 men don't know how to manage the household, so they want to, I'm willing." Natalie agreed without thinking. As soon as she arrived at the house, she regarded herself as the mistress. The house owner didn't care because he fancied her youth. And it really seemed like a second marriage to some extent, but the house owner's son was very troublesome and would hit people when he lost his temper. Since then, Natalie had been beaten every day, and there wasn't a single uninjured part on her face. Even after being beaten, she still had to do the work, washing clothes, cooking, mopping the floor, and tidying up were all her tasks. The house owner relied on his son for his old age, so he wouldn't say a word in her defense. He would only take advantage of her secretly and persuade her to be patient. On the other hand, my mother had already been working for 5 days. The high-intensity physical labor had almost exhausted her body. She would come home completely worn out every day and still had to cook for my stepfather, who was lying in bed. Once, she was so tired that she fell asleep as soon as she touched the sofa. My stepfather's stomach ached from hunger, and he went to the living room and beat her. During the scuffle, my stepfather fell to the ground, my mother spread her arms, and there was still a hint of disbelief in her eyes. 17. After a month, my ability successfully evolved. My mental power coverage was sufficient to reach the no. 3 base hundreds of miles away. At the same time, Natalie was pregnant. I didn't mind watching this drama unfold before leaving. She happily stroked her still, flat belly and went home to ask her father for a dowry. My husband is an ability user, and the bride price will definitely not be small. You must prepare a decent dowry for me, otherwise, people will think our family is selling their daughter. My stepfather turned out his pockets to show her. Natalie shrieked loudly, I don't care, I don't care. How can I hold my head up in the future without a dowry? Are you getting old? Why are you so useless? She was so anxious that she was running around in circles. My stepfather seemed to have been slapped hard by her, and his face turned livid. It's not your place to comment on me. My mother went over to persuade her to be patient. This sentence touched Natalie's sensitive nerve. She pushed my mother away violently and cursed, Bitch, I called you mom out of courtesy, but do you really think of me as your own daughter? My mother fell to the ground, hitting her head on the corner of the table, and the skin was broken and bleeding. What kind of look is that? Natalie grabbed her hair and shook it vigorously, and I watched all this coldly, just like she had done to me before. 18. The next day, I joined the mission to go out and find the food and supplies for the next quarter. I planned to take this opportunity to return to the main base. My mother came to the door of my residence. She brought a bowl of stir-fried onions. The aroma was very strong and inviting. I have a daughter named Bella. She loves this dish I stir-fry the most. You look a lot like her, so you might like it too. I closed the door and told her, stay away from me. I'm allergic to onions. Compared with minced garlic and ginger slices, shredded onions are delicious, but I don't like eating the leftover side dishes from others. Also, I will never forgive her. She didn't leave even though there was a door between us. With a dazed look in her eyes, she talked about me in her words. She was very cute when she was a child. Her eyes were just like her biological father's, big, round, and watery. It's a pity that her biological father passed away too early, and no one wanted this child. After I remarried and formed a new family, I learned from my relatives in my hometown and quickly asked my family for their opinions before bringing her over to live with us. It was a great burden to provide for her food, clothing, housing, and transportation. She didn't understand my good intentions and didn't know that when living under someone else's roof, you have to live according to their moods. She has always hated me secretly. No, she doesn't even want to see me even though there's just a door between us. I laughed and said, she should be dead, right? If I were her, I would have been reincarnated to find better parents long ago. Why would I waste time hating you? Suddenly, there was a burst of crying outside the door. I jumped out of the window. The wind blew the corners of my clothes, and my heart was as calm as still water. Why does she think that I would write off more than 10 years of pain just because of a little show of kindness? Is it that my suffering is worthless, or do all parents think that no matter what they've done wrong, as long as they say a cold "it's time to eat," everything is over? I left, feeling just like the day I went to my death. 19. When I returned to the main base, I found that my zombie army had been reduced to half of its original size under the siege of the elimination plan. I used my human identity to go around the bases to gather information and learned that the Research Institute of the Central Base had mass-produced a certain inhibitor. Around the outer wall of the Central Base, there were installed spray devices filled with the prepared inhibitor. As soon as I got close, I felt suffocated. At that moment, I knew that the end of the zombies was coming. 20. When the world announced that the apocalypse had officially ended, I had already disbanded the zombie army at the main base and fled. A large amount of gold and jewels that I had scavenged on the way were hoarded in the basement of an abandoned villa. After social order was stabilized, I sold and transferred the supplies and hired someone to renovate the villa. The foreman was an honest man. He didn't recommend that I live alone in the wilderness. The zombies haven't been completely cleared yet. What if one breaks into the house? I said. I'm an ability user. I'm not afraid of zombies. My stepfather frowned. This won't work. It'd be best if there was something to distract the zombies for us. While the villa was being renovated, I went to the urban area to go through the formalities. There were a lot of people queuing at the window, and my clairaudience was filled with the sound of idle gossip. The words of one of the women caught my attention. Have you heard about what happened at the No. 1 base? A pregnant woman named Natalie was hacked to death with a knife by her stepmother. Her biological father was so scared that he ran away, but that crazy woman was so cruel that she threw a knife and hit him right in the back. Was that crazy woman not executed? No. Death row inmates are used as bait to trap zombies. She should still be alive. At this time, I was the only one left in the ability user channel. The staff member handed me a household register from the window. Take this back and let your family members fill it out. Without this, you'll be an unregistered resident. I shook my head. No need to go back. I'm the only one in my family. The staff member showed a hint of sadness, seeing that I had just turned 18. He processed the formalities. 21. The exterior of the villa was decorated in a low-key manner, and the interior was completely renovated. I lie at home and watch TV dramas during the day and go out to buy raw meat for animals in the evening. I hire an aunt to come and clean the house regularly. Life is plain but real. It's just that zombies have a very long lifespan and their appearance doesn't age. Every 50 years, I have to move to a new place to settle down. Story 2. On the night after the college entrance examination, my father asked me to accompany his boss. When my mother found out, she didn't say a word and killed my father with a knife. The day my mother was sent to prison, I bound the killing system. Ding. Every time the host comes into contact with a murderer, they can randomly obtain one of the murderer's skills. A week later, the end of the world arrived. I went on a killing spree in the prison. 1. Just as I crossed the prison gate, a crackling sound of electricity came to my ears. Ding. Congratulations to the host for binding the killing system. Every time you come into contact with a murderer, you can permanently obtain a randomly selected skill. Upon hearing this, I gradually slowed down my steps. The guard in front of me saw that I had stopped and turned back to urge me. Why aren't you moving? Weren't you going to see your mother? I silently followed him. In my heart, I listened to the system's voice. The end of the world will arrive in a week. Please make preparations in advance. After the end of the world begins, the system will issue the first task. My mind began to calculate rapidly. The place with the most murderers is naturally the prison. If what the system said is true, then after the end of the world arrives, the prison will become the safest place for me. 2. Ember, after today, just pretend you don't have a mother like me. My mother sat opposite me through the glass, looking haggard. Her voice came through the phone, a bit choked up, just as I was about to say something. The system's voice suddenly rang in my ears. Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining Camila's skill, needle threading. The tiny embroidery needle can often only penetrate coarse linen and is easily ignored by people, but in your hands, it can hit the enemy with 100% accuracy. Friendly reminder, when using this skill on men, the damage will increase by 10. I was taken aback when I heard this. Have I obtained my mother's skill before she was imprisoned? My mother was a gentle and quiet housewife, and her skill with embroidery needles was often praised by those around her, and this skill from her turned out to be a highly offensive ability. 3. Ember, the voice came through the phone. I came back to my senses and saw the worried look on my mother's face across the glass. She probably thought I was hurt by her words. The way I was checking the skill in the system just now probably looked like I was possessed by something to the people outside. I was stiff all over and my eyes were dull. I quickly comforted her. Mom, I'm fine. I just got a little distracted for a moment. I'll come again in a few days. This time, I will definitely be able to protect you. After saying that, I hung up the phone and left. When I reached the prison gate, I turned around and stared deeply at this prison. The 3-meter-high thick walls and the electric wires surrounded the prison airtight. When I came here, I just felt that these things were oppressive. But now, in my eyes, they are simply the best protection, for, when I got home, there was still my father's blood on the ground. I sat on the sofa splattered with large patches of blood and flipped through the recent news. I couldn't find the slightest clue about the end of the world, but crises always come quietly. I tried to communicate with the system. What is the end of the world in 7 days? The system's cold voice came. Natural disasters and man-made disasters. And zombies surrounding the city. After hearing this, my face became serious. Dealing with zombies is already a headache, and there are actually natural disasters. At this moment, the phone on the table rang. After answering it, a shrill female voice immediately came. Ember, the court's judgment has come down. Your father's house will belong to me from now on. Hurry up and move out. Why don't you go and die with that murderer mother of yours? The one who called was my aunt, after my father died. She couldn't wait to pull some strings to make my mother and me leave the house with nothing. She had been eyeing our family's property for many years. After she finished speaking, she hung up the phone. 5. I looked around this retro small Western-style building. Every bit of it was left to my mother by my grandfather. My father came from a remote mountainous area. When my grandfather was kind enough to let him live in our house, he took advantage of my mother's young age and got her pregnant. My mother was a gentle and introverted person, but she was deceived by my father's honest appearance. After my grandfather passed away, my father immediately changed his attitude. Not only did he keep a mistress outside, but he also wanted me to accompany his boss for the sake of his career. Now, this place has become someone else's property. I couldn't help but laugh at myself. One day, I will take back everything I have lost. 6. I packed up what I could take and put it into the system grid. And exchanged the things that were of no use for cash. Most of the things exchanged for cash were bought by my father. When he lived here before, he liked to buy some flashy things. He called it having face. Looking at the several tons of food and hundreds of sets of clothes stored in the system backpack, I closed the door of the Western-style building with satisfaction. After the end of the world arrives, the house is the most useless thing. If my aunt wants it, let her have it. A house like this can't block the zombies at all. 7. On the early morning of the 7th day, I woke up on time. The sky outside the window was faintly dark red. Everyone didn't take the strange sky phenomenon seriously, because the weather forecast the night before had predicted that there would be an unprecedented heavy rain today. In the sky, the storm and thunder intertwined, but not a single drop of rain fell. It was like it was building up momentum, waiting for a complete outburst. Only I knew that the end of the world was really coming. When I arrived at the prison, the system's voice rang in my ears on time, now issuing the first task: successfully kill the first zombie. 8. The zombie virus came quietly. The infected person let out a roar and turned around to attack the iron door behind him. Some people still had a look of confusion from just waking up on their faces. They were bitten unexpectedly, and the next moment, their veins bulged, their whole bodies swelled up, and their eyes turned frighteningly red. The transformation happened rapidly in an instant. The screams gradually woke up the silent prison. Zombies are attracted by sound. The louder the sound, the more intense their reaction. While the zombies were attracted by the sound, I approached, estimated the safe distance, and stabbed a needle through the zombie's head. The system's voice rang in my ears. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the first zombie. Reward obtained: 1 cruise ship, 5 sets of protective clothing. 9. Without time to think about why a cruise ship was awarded as a reward on land, I immediately put on the protective clothing. A blue light flashed. There was no change in my appearance, but a faint white light appeared on my skin, as if I was firmly protected by a layer of plastic film. Attention: the protective clothing is a one-time item and can be given as a gift. Usage time: 30 minutes. The needle threading skill had high damage, and I rushed into the interior of the prison all the way. The situation inside the prison was as I expected. Most of the prisoners quickly fought back after reacting and blocked the zombies outside. When they saw me jumping in through the window, a group of people immediately surrounded me tightly. Stop, she came in from the outside. She must have been bitten by a zombie. A group of muscular men surrounded me and looked me up and down. Brother, there doesn't seem to be any wound on her body. Behind them, a man said weakly. The tallest man at the front didn't relax his vigilance. The hot muzzle of the gun was firmly pressed against my forehead. I raised my hand, and my heart was pounding. 10. After finding that I seemed to be just a beautiful but useless person, the man put down the gun. You, go and stay over there. The man pointed to the room behind him. I obediently walked over. My fingers accidentally rubbed against the man's clothes corner. Just as I stepped into the entrance of the cell, the system's voice rang in my ears in time. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Xander's skill, overwhelming momentum. It is a Taoist inheritance. The mighty and righteous chi between heaven and earth. The original owner used it to split mountains and crush stones, and kill people invisibly. Now it's in your hands. Use it boldly. I immediately let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, I succeeded. The contact range recognized by the system was extremely broad. It could be as big as exchanging names or as small as touching the same item at the same time, which would trigger it. 11. After Xander took over the prison, those who didn't obey were all killed. In the early days of the end of the world, the zombies' abilities were not strong. Feeling invincible, Xander began to act tyrannically in the prison with his men. I was one of the first people they targeted. At night, I was pushed into the room. In the room in front of me, besides me, there were also several young and beautiful female prisoners, and Xander was sitting on the bed, roughly choking a female prisoner's neck, outside the door. A few of his subordinates were looking at the room with lust. Boss, can you let us brothers have a taste after you're done? Hearing this, Xander pushed away the woman who was almost out of breath. You have no ambition, I'll let you play with her. After saying that, he suddenly looked at me. I suddenly met his gaze and understood, saying, you want to play with me? 12. There was a hint of interest in Xander's eyes, and he ordered, come here. I didn't hesitate and stood still in front of Xander. He nodded his chin at the place where the female prisoner had lain and motioned for me to lie down. I didn't move and smiled at Xander. While he was looking at me with great interest, I slapped him across the face without hesitation. A crisp slapping sound rang out in the room. In an instant, all sound stopped. Everyone stared at me in a daze. The fat on Xander's face twitched, and his left cheek immediately swelled up. There was a flash of disbelief in his eyes, but I didn't wait for him to react. I kicked him hard in the groin with the skill overwhelming momentum. A howl immediately rang out in the room. Xander fell to the ground, his hands tightly covering his groin, and blood flowed out uncontrollably. I kicked Xander, who was lying on the ground moaning and screaming, flying away. After wiping the blood off my shoes, I chuckled. Just you still want to play with me. In the past few days, I had activated more than 20 skills one after another. Now, they were no match for me. The subordinates outside the door seemed to be awakened at this moment and looked at me with fear. 13. The stable situation in the prison immediately underwent a major reshuffle after I killed Xander. Many people took a fancy to my ability and wanted me to be the new leader. I had no interest in managing the prison. I just wanted to stay quietly with my mother until the end of the world. Why don't we cooperate to establish a safe zone? Someone suggested to me, looking very sincere. I had met this person, his name was Evan, and he was the only one who had dared to speak up for me behind Xander before. His character and courage were decent. Building a safe zone to protect my mother seemed like a good idea. I shook his outstretched hand. Sure, I have only one request: protect my mother well. Evan agreed without hesitation. Before entering the prison, he was a talent graduated from a top university in the country. He was very efficient, and with my help, the safe base took shape quickly. Just when I thought everything would be thriving, the system suddenly issued a new task: extreme survival warning. Please try your best to survive in this challenge. I immediately had a bad feeling. 14. My premonitions soon came true. The heavy rain that had been building up in the sky for more than a month finally fell. Like a faucet that had been turned on, the river burst its banks, the earth trembled, and mudslides broke out. In a trance, it gave people the illusion that everyone would die. The prison was located in a low-lying area and was quickly flooded. I immediately used the cruise ship that the system had given me early. The sudden appearance of the cruise ship on the spot didn't arouse anyone's suspicion. The things from the system, when brought into the real world, would automatically affect people's subconscious and seem reasonable. The system's cruise ship was very special. Not only was it large in space, but it also had a renewable power system, so there was no need to worry about water and electricity. After the people from the base came on board, they couldn't take their eyes off it when they saw this place. Autumn, I think I could stay here for the rest of my life. After Evan inspected the cruise ship, he said to me seriously. I immediately shattered his delusion. This cruise ship can only last for a month at most, and there is no food. The things produced by the system all had a shelf life. Otherwise, I would have taken out the cruise ship long ago. 15. After others left, my mother quietly pulled me. Amber, Mom doesn't need to live in such a good room. Let those who have made high contributions live in it. Hearing this, I immediately held my mother's hand. Mom, if I can't even let you live in the best room, then what's the point of me running this base? My mother sighed. I didn't agree when you went out alone to kill zombies before. How can I let my child work hard outside while the parent does nothing? I shook my head. Mom, I just want to protect you. I will never forget that day in court. I sat below, watching the public opinion turn completely one-sided, watching the judge sentence without hesitation, and seeing the accusing and fearful looks people gave my mother. She was the murderer that people said deserved to die, but to me, she was just an angry mother who tried her best to protect her child. That was the most powerless moment in my life. 16. After settling everyone down, I looked up at the thick dark clouds and didn't let down my guard. Natural disasters could never be overcome so easily. The rain kept falling as if it would never stop. The water on the ground was rushing, and the water level kept rising. People who were caught in the rain all had fevers and colds one after another. There were all kinds of illnesses, both big and small. The depressed atmosphere on the ship continued to spread. Fortunately, the cruise ship sailed diligently for half a month and finally found a highland. As soon as the people on the ship landed, they couldn't wait to go and look for supplies. After half a month of consumption, the supplies on the ship were almost used up. I didn't go down to look for supplies. The supplies in my system backpack were still more than enough, and I wasn't as urgent as others. Moreover, my mother had a fever. 17. After a day, only a few people who went to look for supplies came back, and they were all injured. As soon as they came back, they immediately anxiously came to see me. Autumn, the people on the mountain not only robbed us of our supplies but also detained Evan. I asked, do you know the specific situation? Those people are very cunning. At first, they let us exchange supplies. Unexpectedly, after they found out that we had a cruise ship, they immediately changed their attitude and asked us to exchange the cruise ship for people. Seeing that I was a bit hesitant, my mother pushed me. I'm fine. Go and take a look. Her eyes looking at me were gentle and firm. I nodded and turned to the people and said, you take me to have a look. When I went there, The people on the mountain seemed to know that I would come. They were holding weapons and blocking the entrance. A group of people looked at me arrogantly. "Are you the owner of the cruise ship?" The leading man looked at me, and a hint of disdain flashed in his eyes. I thought it was some powerful person. It turns out to be just a Brashian girl. I didn't reply. My eyes swept over this group of people, and I found a familiar face among them. I looked at her, and my pupils shrank. "I didn't expect you to still be alive." When I spoke, the person hiding behind the men finally stood out. 18. My aunt's name was Autumn. Before the end of the world, she had married a somewhat wealthy upstart, but judging from the current situation, my uncle should have been ruthlessly abandoned. I wasn't surprised by this at all. Autumn heard my words and leaned against the man's arms, adding fuel to the fire. "Tobias, this little slut's mother killed my brother. Neither she nor her mother are good people. You have to teach them a good lesson for me." I didn't react much when I heard her words, but the man named Tobias immediately stared at me and said in an unfriendly tone, "You made my woman unhappy. Why don't you continue? Kneel down and apologize to her." I didn't move. The man suddenly strode towards me and reached out his big hand to grab my head. 19. I nimbly dodged the man and then slapped him on the back of his waist, with a bang. The man was knocked to the ground by me. He seemed to be stunned for a moment. He tried to get up but was firmly stepped on by me. I glanced at Autumn and said in a somewhat casual tone, "Just in time you're here. We can settle both our old and new scores together." I firmly stepped on the man's back with one foot and took out the silver needle from my pocket with the other hand. Several men who came closer with crowbars were instantly nailed through their tendons and fell to the ground. 20. Seeing a group of people lying in front of me, Autumn was stunned and exclaimed, "What are you doing?" After saying that, she seemed to regret it and took a few steps back, forcing a fake smile. "Ember, I didn't expect you to be so powerful now. If your father were alive in heaven, he would definitely be proud of you." I felt almost nauseous when I heard this and immediately lost the patience to listen. I fiercely choked the man's neck and dragged him up, asking, "Where are the people you imprisoned?" Autumn was still being hesitant and didn't answer, but the man below couldn't stand this humiliating posture anymore and opened his mouth. "In the small wooden house. Let me go, and I'll take you there." 21. When I arrived at the small wooden house, Evan and the others had already untied the ropes, looking at the people who were holding sticks and were about to knock me out. I took the lead in breaking the silence. "It seems you guys are still in good spirits." Evan saw me and embarrassedly put down the stick. "Boss, I should have been more cautious. I've caused you trouble." I took a step back and made room for them to come out. Quite a few people came out and soon surrounded the small wooden house, looking at many unfamiliar faces inside. Before I could say anything, Evan had already explained first. "These are all the people who were originally trapped. They were all deceived by that man." Speaking of this, he immediately said angrily, "In the apocalypse, there are no kind-hearted people. Who would have thought that such a thin and small man could be so full of tricks?" Hearing this, I was stunned and murmured, "Thin and small, among that group of people just now, there was no one with such a body shape." Thinking of this, I immediately turned around and ran back. My heart was beating so fast that it seemed to jump out of my chest. There was only one thought in my mind. Something happened to the cruise ship, and my mother was still on it. 22. When I ran to the docking point, everyone immediately understood what had happened. Someone saw the empty place and immediately cursed, "Damn it, that kid is so insidious. He actually drove the ship away. My things are still on it. Don't let me meet him again, or I'll break his teeth." The complaining voices behind me came intermittently, but I ignored them. My heart was filled with great worry, until the system's voice suddenly rang out. I quickly calmed down, detected that the cruise ship is more than 500 meters away from the host. Now the automatic recall function will be activated. I looked at the cruise ship that was automatically driving back from a distance and clenched the crowbar that somehow appeared in my hand, before rushing up. I couldn't help but think in my heart, no matter who is on the ship, you'd better pray that my mother is okay, otherwise, you will definitely be doomed. 23. When I got on the ship, I and the people behind me were all stunned. There were corpses lying all over the ground, like a murder scene. The few remaining people who were still alive saw us coming and crawled over to beg for mercy. "Help, there's been a killing." I looked at the man rushing towards me, raised the stick, and struck him on the head. The crowbar broke, and the man immediately bled and fell to the ground. After he fainted, I immediately rushed towards my mother. "Mom, are you okay?" My mother shook her head. She gave me her familiar gentle and harmless smile. I carefully examined my mother, except for her red face, which still showed signs of a fever. There were no other external injuries. Seeing this, I immediately let out a sigh of relief. 24. After my mother's introduction, I learned what had happened on the ship, after the ship was driven away. Those people planned to massacre the old, weak, sick, and disabled on the ship, unexpectedly. They were counter-killed. Ember, they helped me. They are all very powerful people. I looked at the people my mother mentioned, a seemingly introverted and quiet little girl, an octogenarian leaning on a crutch, a lively and active husky, and a big man wearing a small skirt. I didn't underestimate them, after all. People who could end up in prison must have some real skills. I thanked them. Thank you for saving my mother. The few of them were stunned for a moment and somehow seemed a bit hesitant. 25, until at night, the quiet girl named Fiona quietly whispered in my ear, actually, when those men said they were going to occupy this place and kill us all, the first one to react was Camila. Speaking of this, she looked up with a look of admiration in her eyes. Camila is so fierce. Before we could react, she rushed up and suppressed 3 men alone, beating them fiercely. That posture clearly showed she had practiced. I looked at the excited girl and felt a complex emotion. Just now, I had obtained a new skill. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a new skill. The Sharp Woman. Skill Introduction. The 18 Deadly Knives. Each knife is deadly. After 10 years of hard study, it's all for this one moment of eruption, stabbing someone 18 times, each knife causing a minor injury, perhaps. This is the charm of a medical student. When I investigated the prison before, I knew there was someone in the prison who stabbed her boyfriend and got in. At that time, the news caused a stir, and the defendant was only sentenced to 1 month in prison, and this tough person was now in front of me, saying that she admired my mother, 26, when my grandfather was still alive. He sometimes told me stories about my mother when she was a child. Every time he said that my mother was the bully of the neighborhood when she was a child, often climbing onto the roof and taking off the tiles and beating people. I never took it seriously. My mother had always been a gentle and virtuous housewife in front of me, until today. I had a new understanding of my mother's combat power. It turned out that my grandfather really wasn't bragging. I coughed softly and pretended to be extremely calm in front of Fiona, as if I had known this all along. Secretly, I was sighing. No wonder the skill I obtained from my mother had such great lethality. My mother had always educated me. The best way to protect someone is not to keep them in a greenhouse but to let them be strong and grow through hardships. It was not until Fiona affectionately took my hand and praised my mother's heroic deeds that I suddenly woke up. In the past, I had blindly tried to stand in front and protect my mother, but I had ignored my mother's thoughts. She wasn't just Ember's mother. Her name was Camila, from the beginning to the end. How could a woman who could easily kill a man be weak? 27, Mom, I met Autumn when I went down this time. She's with a new man now. Originally, I didn't plan to tell my mother these things, but after what happened yesterday, I also understood. My mother was stronger than I thought. She had the right to know everything. My mother heard my words and was very calm, as if she wasn't surprised at all. This place is close to her home. It's not strange to meet her. I glanced at my mother's expression and said softly, she took away Grandpa's house before. I wanted to take it back, but since the end of the world has come, that house is useless now. My mother nodded and affirmed, you did the right thing. If the house is gone, we can get another one. If your grandfather knew how powerful you are now, he would only be proud of you. After saying that, she gently patted me, and there was still a lingering murderous look on her face. Our family members are all reasonable people. We should avenge the wrongs and thank the kindness. I nodded in agreement. The people in our family have always avenged their enemies on the spot. The people on the mountain, along with Autumn, were left there wearing only their underwear. After all, if you want to play dirty tricks, you have to bear the consequences of failure. 28. After the flood receded, food became the most scarce resource in the apocalypse. We went back to the prison. Although it had been washed by the flood, the electric wires could still be turned on again. After clearing away the zombies around, the safety factor here became very high. The heavy rain had washed away most of the food planted in the prison, and only some canned food was still usable. Fortunately, the fertility of the land and the seeds were still there, and food could be planted again. In the first year of the apocalypse, natural disasters and zombies appeared frequently, and the safe zone established in the prison gradually became famous. More and more talents were recruited into the prison. When I drove back after clearing the zombies, I heard a crackling sound of gunshots at the prison gate. When I got closer, a bullet swept past my ear. The sudden pain on the side of my face was accompanied by the huge creature that appeared in front of me. 29. Without time to feel the pain, I quickly dodged the strange beast that attacked me. The strange beast was probably about 2 meters long and was a mutated crocodile. When it bit, its sharp teeth were extremely lethal. The bullets shot at it seemed to have no effect. I took out a small knife and swung it at the crocodile. After only a few strokes, there were notches on the knife. This crocodile was even more thick-skinned than I thought. I threw away the knife and quickly avoided the crocodile's open mouth. The mouth with great biting force looked like it could easily swallow me in one bite. I immediately took out the big knife rewarded by the system. The crocodile's head bled bright red blood after being struck, but the wound was not very deep. The crocodile was in pain and rushed up again, this time even more. Fortunately, during this period, I had killed many evolved zombies and gained experience in fighting. I dodged and attacked at the same time, using the skills to the fullest, and finally managed to wear down and kill the crocodile little by little. 30. I collapsed beside the car, gasping for breath, and the system's voice rang in my ears. Congratulations to the host for killing a mutated beast for the first time. Reward obtained: 1 strange beast egg, 1 strange beast serum, 1 incomplete antidote fragment, 1 dragon thorn knife, 100 sets of protective clothing. Mutated beasts were a new species that had only recently appeared, and this was the first time I had encountered one. This reward was higher than the rewards I had obtained for killing evolved zombies before. After I regained my strength, I drove into the base and asked someone to bring the strange beast's body in. I handed over the supplies I had obtained from this field mission to my mother for management. Just after checking the system's rewards, someone suddenly came in from outside and informed me, "Boss, the strange beast you killed has been robbed." 31. The person in charge of escorting the strange beast took me to the warehouse and pointed at the strange beast's body that had been divided up, leaving only its head, and complained, "Those newly arrived people, relying on the fact that they are scientific researchers and using the excuse of saving the apocalypse, have robbed all the supplies they could in our base." I looked at the corpse on the ground and turned to ask, "Where are those people now?" "They are in Area 1 now. They have also occupied the best house." When I went there, those people happened to be arguing with others. An old man among them was holding a supply bag in his hand and refusing to let go, shouting, "We need this for our research, just hand it over to us obediently." The strong man opposite also refused to give in. He was holding up his skirt with one hand and pointing at the old man while scolding, "Why should I give it to you? This was issued to me by my boss. If you want it, exchange it with your own strength." Seeing this, several men around the old man aggressively prepared to step forward. The strong man was rolling up his skirt and preparing to fight. When he caught a glimpse of me out of the corner of his eyes suddenly lit up. He trotted towards me and changed his burly voice into a sweet girl's voice. "Boss, these people are so unreasonable. You must teach them a lesson." After saying that, he put his hands on his hips and glared at the opposite side, looking like they were doomed. 32. I coughed softly, trying to save my image. "Kieran, I always convince people with reason." Kieran nodded and was about to speak, but was directly interrupted by the opposite side. "You sissy men actually recognize a little girl as your boss. You really have no shame. Is that woman the mistress of someone in your base?" Hearing this, I looked at the old man who spoke. He was wearing a white coat, with a mean face and a sarcastic tone. He was surrounded and protected by several bodyguards, and he was holding a supply bag tightly in his arms. I stopped Kieran, who was about to step forward, and asked him, "Who are you?" After hearing this, the old man introduced himself confidently. "I am Dr. Jet from the Sunshine Laboratory, the person most likely to solve the zombie virus. Before the end of the world, the Sunshine Laboratory was the most famous laboratory in the world." After he finished speaking, the system prompt also rang in my ear. My expression became serious. After reading the skill introduction, I turned around and ordered the guards, "Throw these people out. Our base doesn't need such people." Congratulations to the host for unlocking Jet's skill. Sneaky tricks, reputation, status, identity, and money can all be stolen. P.S. Do you also want to become a superstar? Kill the original owner, and you can take his place. I was speechless. This was the most useless and disgusting murderer I had ever encountered. 33. Jet struggled violently in the hands of the guards, trying to save himself, and shouted loudly, "You can't touch me. I am a relative of Boss Wesley." "Regardless of what boss you are talking about, get out of here quickly." Kieran was holding the recovered supply bag while cursing. The guards were in the middle of throwing people out when they were stopped. "This is someone from Boss Wesley. How dare you move them?" The bodyguards behind surrounded them and looked fierce. I followed behind and asked when I saw this, "Who is Boss Wesley?" I didn't expect that just after I hadn't been back to the base for a month. There were many people I didn't know. Kieran secretly lowered his head and whispered in my ear to explain. "He came from another base last month. His name is Wesley. He brought scientific research resources, so Evan made him a vice captain." The vice captain in the base was equivalent to the mayor level. "He has been acting tyrannically, relying on his status this month." Hearing this, I paused. "Wesley, the one with the dark birthmark on his face and a strong accent?" Kieran nodded in surprise. "Yes. Boss, do you know him? I gradually showed a meaningful smile. Speaking of this person, I knew him very well. Before the end of the world, he embezzled public funds, bribed, enslaved his subordinates, and made ill-gotten gains. He also colluded with Autumn and bribed the court to mess up my mother's lawsuit. Most importantly, he was my father's boss. 34. As the saying goes, enemies often meet on a narrow road. Wesley came to our door by himself so openly. If I didn't return some gifts, it wouldn't be reasonable. When I went to find him, Wesley was still drinking red wine happily. When he saw me come in, he even reached out to me in a daze. Pretty girl, come and play with me. I held his outstretched hand and whispered in his ear, honey, so you're here. Cade said he's been looking for you downstairs for a long time. Cade was the name of my scumbag father. The person in front of me was stunned for a moment, and the confusion in his eyes gradually faded. He sat up straight, opened his small mung-bean-sized eyes, and carefully examined me. After a while, he slapped his thigh as if he understood. It's you. He stood up excitedly, his eyes filled with excited malice. Let's see what I've found. Are you a gift that Evan gave me? After saying that, he staggered to his feet, and a stench of alcohol came out when he spoke. I didn't get you last time. As long as you make me happy this time, you can choose whatever you want from these. He pointed at the mountain of supplies behind him. I was sharp-eyed and clearly saw that more than half of them were the supplies I had just brought, so my things had been robbed by him. Seeing this, I imitated Fiona and gave him a cute and shy smile. 35. When Evan received the news and rushed over in a hurry, what he saw was the scene of me beating Wesley on the ground. I even used the sharp woman skill, specifically targeting the painful spots. Until there was a smell of urine in the room, I withdrew my hand and stood up in disgust, and Wesley crawled and rolled to Evan's feet. He pointed at me and cursed loudly. Evan, did you send this little bitch here to kill me? His face was like a pig's head, and his small eyes, now only slits, were filled with nothing but resentment. I exchanged a glance with Evan. He immediately understood. He kicked Wesley away and then stood behind me, with a humble attitude. I call you Wesley, and you really think you're a big shot. Let me introduce you. The person in front of you is the leader of our base, the one you've always wanted to see. Since she wants to beat you personally, shouldn't you kneel down and thank her with gratitude? His last sentence came out so smoothly that I coughed softly, pretending not to hear. As I revealed more and more of my abilities, the people in the base had unconsciously deified me. I looked at the person on the ground who was still in disbelief and gave a faint order, throw him and his people out together. From now on, our base doesn't welcome him. 36. Wesley was kicked out of the base with his subordinates, but he seemed to be born with a thick skin. He stubbornly shouted at the base entrance for 3 days and refused to leave. The people in the base, following my orders, ignored him completely, until the 3rd day. Evan came to see me. Wesley is dead, he said. His voice attracted a strange beast, and he was chewed to only his head left. I calmly observed the strange beast serum in my hand and was not surprised at all. However, Camila specifically went to the entrance to collect his body. Evan's voice was a bit hesitant. Hearing this, I put down the medicine in my hand, turned around, and asked with a hint of confusion in my voice, my mom. 37. My mom had buried a small mound of earth in a wasteland behind the prison. She stood in front of the mound, her head bowed in silence. When I went over, I didn't disturb her and quietly stood behind the mound with her. After a long time, my mom let out a sigh. Do you remember the house next to ours? I nodded. The house next to ours had always been abandoned, and later it was often joked about as a haunted house. When I was a child, I even believed the story of the haunted house for a while. That house used to belong to Wesley's family, my mom said. I looked down at the mound, a bit shocked. So my mom and Wesley had known each other for a long time. In your terms, you could say they were childhood sweethearts, my mom continued. As she spoke, she closed her eyes, and her voice trembled slightly. When I saw him again, I really almost didn't recognize him. When he was a child, he was always a gentle and quiet boy. His grades weren't very high, but he was very smart. I always used to play with him at that time. Unfortunately, later, his mother contracted an epidemic disease, and their family was avoided by everyone. His mother died in less than a year. After that, his father took him away and never came back. Sometimes I wonder, if I could have done something at that time, would everything be different? 38. A person who is pitiful must have something about them, I said softly. Mom, such a person isn't worth pitying. My mom let out a soft hum and said, I know. Perhaps when Wesley harassed my mom before and colluded with my dad to covet me, he might also have thought of his former self, or perhaps he had completely turned bad. No one knew what he was thinking in the end. Alongside buried everything in silence. 39. In the 3rd year of the apocalypse, large-scale disasters broke out, zombies surrounded the city, and the world's population plummeted. The incomplete antidote and strange beast serum that I had been collecting finally became almost complete. After getting the complete antidote, I finally saw the origin of the zombies. The initial zombie virus originated from animals. At first, people all thought it was just a simple flu. Their lack of attention to containment allowed the people who ate the meat of those animals to all mutate. Later, the mutated people were controlled by a nerve virus, ate raw meat, and couldn't be killed even if their hearts were pierced. They were like zombies. This was also the reason why the laboratory had no progress in researching on zombies and humans, but now, the antidote finally had progress. As long as these were handed over to professional scientific researchers, the antidote could be developed soon. People had become proficient at avoiding natural disasters and were about to solve the threats of zombies and strange beasts. Humanity, which had been struggling in the apocalypse, was about to welcome the dawn. Anyone who knew these news would feel extremely happy, but at this moment, I was just staring blankly at the antidote in my hand and asking, "System, what exactly are you?" This was the first time I had become curious about the system's identity. If it weren't for the system, I might have also become a tiny dust crushed by the natural disasters, and the apocalypse, presumably, wouldn't end so soon. 40, ding. Detected that the threat level of the apocalypse in the current world is gradually decreasing. Congratulations to the host for completing the challenge. Now issuing the last hidden task. Task issuer, killing system. Please choose, accept/reject the task. I looked at the task that suddenly popped up on the panel, and my finger hovered over accept. This task was issued by you. I asked, yes. The designer didn't prepare this task for the host, but after calculation, the system found that with the host's current abilities, the success rate is as high as 99%. After it finished speaking, I didn't hesitate and clicked accept. I thought, finally, I could do something for the system. Task objective, save Ember. Task time is unlimited. There will be no punishment for failure. Please complete the task with confidence. When I saw the task objective, I was stunned. Save myself. 41. Don't worry, follow your feelings, and you can complete this task. After the task is successful, the system will send you back. After the system finished this sentence, it completely disappeared, and I looked at the familiar environment in front of me. This was my grandfather's small Western-style building. Everything was the same as before, even on the sofa and carpet. There were dark red bloodstains that seemed to have solidified for a long time. I walked up the stairs and all the way to the door of my room. Since I stood here, there had been an inexplicable impulse in my heart. This time, a different scene finally appeared inside the door. In a pure white space, a sleeping woman was lying. Her hair was completely white. Countless transparent test tubes were connected to her brain. Her body was old and full of wrinkles, like a mummy. I suddenly felt a surge of sadness. 42. Don't cry. This was my choice. A gentle female voice came from the screen in front of me. I already know everything from the data. You saved your mother and also saved the apocalypse. Parallel worlds me. You've done a great job. I gently stroked the old face in front of me and asked, "Can I save you?" The voice smiled softly, with a hint of relief. The killing system was made with my memories. It took the initiative to bring you here. I'm really sorry. However, you've erased all the things I regretted, and I will be with the life I've dedicated my life to researching forever. 43. I had a dream. In the dream, I became the friend of a little girl. I helped her parents get a divorce, took back the small Western-style building, and drove away all the people who bullied their mother and daughter. I accompanied the little girl to grow up day by day and watched her become a genius in the field of physics. The little girl was extremely talented and discovered the existence of parallel worlds. In order to help herself in another world, she exhausted all her efforts and created a new life. What should we name it? A fool. Okay, let's call it the killing system. 44. When I woke up from the dream, the person in front of me closed her eyes with a smile. A very faint voice that was about to dissipate came from my ear. "Thank you for giving the host a beautiful dream," I gently said. The scene in front of me changed, and I returned to the house in the base. People's faces were filled with the joy of the end of the apocalypse. After the apocalypse, people threw themselves into one infrastructure project after another. Everything before seemed like a dream. I held the last bit of electronic components in my hand, looking up at the clear blue sky. Suddenly, a voice came from the distance. "Ember, where have you been again? Come quickly, we're going home." After the end of the apocalypse, my family's small Western-style building had been rebuilt. Civilization was also reviving. Perhaps in a few years, I could still go to college. "I'm coming." In the setting sun, I turned around and ran towards my mother. The shadow behind me was stretched very long. I rushed into that person's arms quickly, like the wind. As expected, a gentle scolding came to my ears. "Run slowly. There's no rush," I gently agreed. Yes, there's no rush. Story 3. Having been reborn just before the apocalypse, I thoroughly stocked up and fortified my small supermarket. I waited for the malicious school beauty and her 3 brothers, who doted on their younger sisters to an extreme, to come knocking on my door. In my previous life, they blindly protected their sister, smashed up my supermarket, stole my supplies, and watched as I was pushed into a horde of zombies by the malicious school beauty. It wasn't until the zombies had torn my clothes and flesh that they noticed the birthmark on my body and their expressions turned to horror. It turned out I was their real younger sister. 1. I died just a second before the zombie serum was injected into my body, in the last moments before my death. I endured the excruciating pain of being torn and gnawed at by zombies. If the school beauty hadn't brought her brothers that day to destroy my supermarket, steal my supplies, and push me towards the zombie horde, I wouldn't have been devoured by zombies and died with my eyes wide open. If I could do it all over again, I would definitely make her pay a painful price. Perhaps it was divine pity, but when I opened my eyes again, I found myself reborn. I had returned to 5 days before the outbreak of the zombie virus. I suppressed the excitement in my heart and quickly calmed myself down, sorting through my memories of my past life. In 5 days, a disaster that even scientists could not explain would erupt: the zombie virus. This virus spread incredibly fast and was uncontrollable. Infected people would lose their minds, wandering and biting like the Walking Dead. Those who were bitten would also turn into zombies. However, 2 months later, scientists developed a serum and a vaccine. The serum could initially control the spread of the virus and help the infected regain their senses, but those with severe limb loss and organ damage could not be saved. Like me, in my previous life, I shuddered as I recalled the intense pain of being bitten by zombies in my past life. I took a deep breath to calm myself, looking at the small supermarket left to me by my mother. I knew that my immediate task was to fortify the doors and windows and stock up on supplies. Today was Monday, and I skipped school to go directly to the city's largest market to buy food. With the Mid-Autumn Festival approaching, there were all sorts of gift boxes filled with mooncakes and hairy crabs. Under the enthusiastic sales pitch of the salesperson, I bought a few crabs as a gesture. Then, I broke away from the crowd and headed straight for the food section. While ordering a large quantity of filling and non-perishable food, I also contacted a door and electrical appliance store and a gas company. I had the door company install the toughest doors, windows, and bulletproof glass in my supermarket within 5 days. The electrical store was to equip my supermarket with solar panels and a backup generator. Water towers and gas were also essential, ensuring my quality of life for the next 2 months, due to the tight schedule. I had to pay the workers more money. Just preparing these things had spent all of the $300,000 inheritance from my mother, but I didn't feel sorry at all, because in 5 days, I would be worth billions. 2. I spent 5 days gathering various supplies and arming my small supermarket. These 5 days made me profoundly realize that money truly is omnipotent. My small supermarket is now indestructible. The supplies stored could last not just for 2 months, but even for a year if needed for eating and drinking. This was the first time I had been so extravagant, and the feeling of buying without looking at prices was exhilarating. I watched the time. With less than 10 minutes left until the massive outbreak of the zombie virus, I turned on my phone, which had been off, and hundreds of messages flooded in. The messages I had posted on various forums and the school's official website about the upcoming zombie virus outbreak had all been reported. Some said I was spreading rumors, causing social panic. Others called me crazy. Only a few believed my words and went to stock up on supplies. There was little time left, and that was all I could do. But what I really wanted to see wasn't this. I opened WeChat, and over these 5 days, a girl named Mila had sent me many messages, but her messages were not out of concern. They were full of insults. "How dare you ignore Miss Mila's messages? You wait, I'll make you regret it." The paragraphs translate to, "Do you think I'll let you off just because you didn't come to school? Sophia, you dare to hide from me. Do you want to drink toilet water again? You're done for today." I looked at the photos she sent, all of them taken during previous instances when she bullied me. She had her cronies write "slut" on my body with a marker. They cut off the long hair I had been growing for 5 years and threw it into the trash. When I resisted, she slapped me and had her lackeys force me to drink water from the squat toilet. All of this, just because the person she liked had confessed to me. I'll never forget how Mila stepped on my head and warned me, "Sophia, my dad is the richest man in the country, and I have 3 powerful brothers. What do you have to fight against me? These lessons you learned are what you deserved. If you dare tell anyone, I'll scatter your mother's ashes." Indeed, Mila was so confident because she had a wealthy father and 3 devoted brothers. Once, while slapping me at school, she smugly mentioned that even if she committed murder, her brothers would take care of it. Her brothers had promised their late mother that they would do everything to take care of Mila. Plus, having briefly lost her in their childhood due to a lack of supervision, The brothers became even more indulgent once they got her back. When Mila and her cronies beat me half to death, I too wished I had brothers who loved and protected me like that, but not anymore. I shook off those chaotic thoughts and focused on the time. 10 minutes passed quickly, right on schedule. A series of screams came from outside. My classmates had turned into zombies, attacking each other. In the crowd, Mila was escorted to a Porsche by a group of men in black. My small store was on the route Mila took home. I moved a lounge chair, sat in front of the store's bulletproof glass door with my legs crossed, and enjoyed Lake Harry crabs and Haagen-Dazs ice cream. As Mila's car passed by my store, I smiled and gave her the middle finger. My action, as expected, infuriated Mila. She immediately had her driver stop the car, and under the protection of her bodyguards, stormed towards me angrily. I used to avoid Mila since she was powerful and had many supporters. But this time, I didn't hide. Instead, I casually continued to eat my crab, openly provoking her, because I knew, even if I didn't provoke Mila, she wouldn't leave me alone. In my previous life, when the zombie virus broke out, I wasn't at school. The day before, Mila and her group had dunked me in a toilet, leaving me soaking wet and feverish, so I had taken the day off. Later, I faintly heard screams outside. When I peeked out, Mila happened to see me, just like now. She stopped her car and smashed up my store with a smug smile. However, this time, there was no smile on her face. Enraged by my provocation, Mila kicked the store door furiously. She glared at me venomously. "Sophia, have you grown a lion's heart and a leopard's daring to flip me off?" I shifted to a more comfortable position and flipped her off with both fingers. "So what, if you dare, come in and hit me." I saw Mila's face contort with fury. She gritted her teeth and yelled at her bodyguards, "What are you standing there for? Smash her door down." I was unconcerned. As the bodyguards attempted to ram the door, I continued to savor my crab. Who are they kidding? The bulletproof glass and reinforced security door I had installed at great expense wouldn't budge under human force, let alone a small car. I watched, grinning. As the bodyguards rammed the door several times to no effect, I smiled cheekily at Mila. "Is that all you've got?" Mila, fuming, her face turned green. Mila pulled out her phone and dialed a number, venomously warning me, "Sophia, you just wait. I'll make you regret this. I'll have you wait. I'm calling my big brother right now. I don't believe a special forces armored vehicle can't break through your lousy supermarket," she threatened. I was actually waiting for her to say this. After all, in my previous life, the first person to notice my birthmark was Timothy's eldest brother, but with my current identity, I couldn't get close to him. It wasn't long after Mila's call that I saw several armored vehicles driving towards me. A squad of fully armed special soldiers disembarked, led by a tall and handsome officer. It was Mila's big brother, Victor, who joined the special forces to protect his sister. I saw Mila running up to him and throwing herself into Victor's arms. "Big brother, you've finally arrived. It's this Sophia. She spread the zombie virus and killed everyone," Mila accused. I was so angered I almost laughed. "Mila, you really don't prepare your lies." Mila clung to Victor's hand, continuously slandering me, lying. "Sophia, wasn't it just 5 days ago you spread doomsday rhetoric at school? If it wasn't you, why would you have stockpiled supplies and replaced the supermarket windows with bulletproof glass?" As soon as Mila finished speaking, I felt Victor's gaze on me turn icy cold. I saw Victor step forward and push on the door of my little supermarket, his expression turning grave. "It really is bulletproof glass. It seems you can't be separated from this virus outbreak. I order you to open the door immediately." I glanced at Mila, who was protected behind him, remembered how in my past life Mila had pushed me out and he hadn't stopped her, and felt a surge of grievance and sadness. Without a word, and Mila, confident in her backing, continued to incite Victor. "Big brother, she's guilty. She definitely won't open the door. Why don't we just break it down?" Victor agreed with Mila's suggestion and looked back at me, saying, "I'll count to 3, and if you don't open the door, I'll break it down." I took a deep breath, calming myself down. Then I said to Victor, "No need to trouble yourself, officer. I'll open the door myself." With that, I opened the door. Several special forces soldiers in protective gear immediately rushed forward and pinned me to the ground like a terrorist. Mila made a triumphant face at me. "Now you know how formidable my big brother is. Serves you right." I saw Victor affectionately pat Mila's head and felt the irony. I couldn't help but snicker. "Your big brother. Did you guys ever do a paternity test? Is that birthmark on you real?" Victor, a special forces soldier, immediately caught the significance of my words. "A birthmark? How do you know about the birthmark? After all, only Timothy's family knew about the birthmark on the inside of the arm of Timothy's youngest daughter." Hearing Victor ask about the birthmark, Mila's face turned pale. She tried to interrupt my conversation with Victor. "Big brother, don't listen to her nonsense. This wretch is just trying to drive a wedge between us." As she spoke, she even stretched out a foot to step on my face. But I knew Victor, a meticulous soldier, would definitely dig deeper once he became suspicious. Sure enough, Victor pulled Mila back, who was about to kick me. "Sister, wait a moment, I have a few questions for her." He waved his hand, signaling his men to let go of me. I dusted myself off and stood up, feeling no gratitude. After all, if it weren't for his indulgence in the past life, Mila wouldn't dare to push me into a crowd of zombies. At this moment, I looked at Mila, who was sweating profusely, and didn't rush to reveal the truth. I was waiting for the arrival of Timothy's second eldest brother. Sure enough, just as Victor signaled me to continue, the sound of helicopter blades interrupted his questioning. Outside the supermarket, a well-dressed, handsome man came walking down. It was Mila's older brother, William, a financial tycoon who had chosen to go into business to provide a prosperous life for his sister. I wasn't surprised to see Mila's worry turn into joy as she threw herself into William's arms. "Big brother, why did you take so long? This woman spread the zombie virus and I caught her. She even tried to drive a wedge between us." I was so scared. Before I could retort, William grabbed me by the collar and flung me violently toward the shelves. The room temperature milk and drinks, which I had neatly arranged just the day before, crashed down on my head and scattered all over the floor. Trembling, I wiped the blood from my face. In my heart, there was a sense of suffocation from being unable to fight back, mixed with a strange thrill. "Go on, keep hitting me." I couldn't wait to see the expression on William's face when he discovered the truth. Among the three brothers in Timothy's family, William was the one most blindly indulgent towards his sister. Victor was a soldier and somewhat reasonable. But this financial magnate, used to deceit in the business world, seemed to lack that baseline of decency. When it came to his sister, he was unreasonably protective to the extreme. Just like now, William looked at me as if I were trash. He took out a handkerchief, wiped his hands under his gold-rimmed glasses, his eyes fierce, but his words were polite and refined. "Sorry, I lost my temper for a moment. After all, the way you looked at my sister was asking for it." Hearing this, Mila, hiding behind William, smirked triumphantly at me. "Big brother, I knew you loved me the most. I love you to death." I watched William affectionately pat Mila on the head, and then glanced at Victor, who chose to ignore William's actions. My vision began to blur. Despite feeling nauseous from a concussion and in pain as if run over by a truck, I bravely faced the cold stares of William and Victor without showing any weakness. Their looks were just like those of the lackeys who bullied me alongside Mila. William was the most blindly indulgent brother. What would his reaction be when he realized that he was bullying his own sister? But I still didn't rush to reveal the truth. After all, not all three brothers of the Timothy family were present yet, and the climax of the drama was yet to come. I simply leaned against the fallen shelf, lifted my face covered in blood and milk, and asked William with a smile, "You care so much for your sister. Haven't you noticed she's been scratched by a zombie? If you don't take her to the hospital to see your eldest brother soon, she might get infected." At my words, both brothers and Mila herself were stunned. William could no longer focus on hurting me. He cupped Mila's face, examining her from head to toe as if she were a rare treasure. "Sister, tell your big brother. Does it hurt anywhere?" The usually stern-faced Victor also showed concern. His military attention to detail made him quickly notice the wounds on Mila. He took Mila's hand gently, checking it carefully, then his expression drastically changed. I caught a glimpse of Mila, cradled protectively in her brother's hands, looking utterly bewildered. Indeed, in her past life, she had never noticed the slight scratch on the back of her hand, but I knew very well that this fingernail-sized wound eventually led to her being infected by the zombie virus. She was luckier than me. She had an eldest brother, Timothy, a top medical expert involved in developing the serum and vaccine during the zombie outbreak. Under his leadership, this top global medical team developed the serum and vaccine within 3 months. The first dose of serum, eagerly awaited by the whole country, was administered to Mila. Timothy even honored her with the title of trial volunteer, and the whole country thanked her for her heroic contribution. If it hadn't been for Mila bragging to me about this before pushing me into a horde of zombies in her previous life, claiming Timothy had confirmed the serum's safety before administering it, I might have actually believed she had changed. At that moment, Victor didn't hesitate to carry Mila onto the helicopter. William then turned around and fiercely grabbed my neck. My toes left the ground, my throat hurt, and breathing was difficult. It seemed William was truly angered by my words. In his previous life, upon learning that his beloved sister had been scratched, he was so distraught that he didn't spare a glance for me. It wasn't until after he had rushed Mila to the hospital for an examination that he thought to deal with me. Just when I thought William was about to strangle me, he threw me aside with a ferocious expression contorting his refined face. "I suspect this person deliberately released the zombie virus, resulting in my sister's infection. It's akin to murder. You are my brother's men, you know what to do, right? I was tossed to the ground like a rag, unable to suppress a violent cough. I gasped for fresh air, yet an inexplicable urge to kill surged within me. At that moment, I wanted William dead, but I knew I couldn't and wasn't able to yet. The stark disparity in strength between men and women meant I could only take the beating. The gap between the ordinary and the elite meant I could only be scapegoated for this alleged murder. As for telling the truth, without solid irrefutable evidence, even if I spoke up, they wouldn't believe me. Going to the hospital to get a DNA test was the most crucial part of my revenge plan. Victor's men handcuffed me and threw me into the trunk of a car like cattle. The car jolted frighteningly as it dodged hordes of zombies on the way. I endured the roller coaster-like ride in the trunk, listening to the zombies' howls and terrifying gunshots, my face bruised and my body battered. After what seemed like an eternity of bumps, the car finally reached the hospital. Victor's soldiers forcefully dragged me into the elevator, nearly tearing my arms off. After a long corridor, they shoved me into a luxurious VIP hospital room. I fell miserably to the floor, my eyes crusted with dried blood, and despite the severe pain, I looked towards the hospital bed. 3 handsome men stood around the bed, looking worriedly at Mila. One of them, a refined and elegant doctor in a white coat, was tenderly disinfecting and bandaging Mila's hand. This was Mila's third brother, Timothy, who had become a doctor and the director of the city's largest private hospital to ensure his sister lived a pain-free life. Seeing me, Mila was agitated. She clung to Timothy, pointing at me and crying, "Brother, it was her. This wretched woman pushed me towards the zombies and caused me to be scratched. Am I going to die?" I watched as Timothy gently soothed Mila. "Don't be scared, Mila. I've already sprayed you with the suppressant. The world's top scientific teams are here, and the serum will be developed soon. Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to you." Then, Timothy looked over at me, his face usually gentle and compassionate when dealing with patients, now showing cold disdain. I never thought there could be such a malicious woman. His gaze lingered on me, noticing my injuries, his inherent compassion causing him to frown briefly before quickly looking away, facing Timothy, who in a past life had shown me a bit of kindness by hurriedly bandaging my wounds. I felt a sudden pang in my nose. I instinctively tried to defend myself but was cut off by William's kick. He furiously kicked me in the abdomen without any mercy. I was thrown hard against the wall, the intense pain leaving me unable to even scream, shivering. I hugged my stomach and curled up at the base of the wall, unable to get up again. How ruthless! Even though I knew the kick was coming, my injured body couldn't fully dodge it. Fortunately, I adjusted my position so that unlike in my past life when 3 ribs were broken, this time the force was all on my stomach. It looked terrible, but the pain was much less. Seeing me defeated, Mila clapped frantically from her hospital bed, flashing me a triumphant smile. Big bro kicked her well. This wench totally had it coming. Encouraged by her praise, William looked at me with a steely gaze, more fired up than before. "Beating her is too mild. Such a malicious woman should be thrown to the zombies." At these words, Mila's eyes sparkled with excitement, and her gaze toward me turned venomous. "You're right, big bro. Let's throw her out to the zombies." "No, wait. It's my birthday today. I should do it myself to really feel satisfied," she said, rolling up her sleeves and attempting to get out of the bed. I couldn't help but sneer internally. Mila had been wanting to do this all along. She was desperate to kill me to silence me. If it weren't for the zombie virus outbreak, today would have been her 20th birthday, the day she was supposed to inherit billions from Timothy's family. At this critical moment, I was about to expose her true identity, and it was no surprise she wanted me dead. My gaze swept past Victor, whose first reaction to the suggestion was a frown, but he eventually remained silent. I knew he was hesitant. His military discipline made him uncomfortable with punishing a suspect without due process, but today was his beloved sister's birthday, a request from her that he couldn't refuse. I glanced at Timothy, who was holding Mila back from getting out of the bed, pretending to scold her. "Mila, you don't need to dirty your hands. Your brothers will handle it," watching their united front, all ready to feed me to the zombies. I clutched my aching stomach and burst into loud laughter. My laughter caught their attention, and Victor was the first to confront me, his demeanor growing colder. "What are you laughing at?" Bearing the pain, I managed to raise my hand shakily and wipe the tears from my laughter, baring my teeth in a grin. "I'm laughing at you all for wanting to throw your real sister to the zombies for a fake one." 8. My words hit them like a torpedo, stunning the 4 people in the room. Victor was the quickest to react. He stepped forward and grabbed my collar, staring at me sharply, and demanded in a low voice, "What proof do you have for saying that?" Before I could answer, an agitated Mila immediately interrupted. "Big brother, don't believe her. She's just trying to drive a wedge between us. This wicked woman should just be fed to the zombies sooner rather than later." As she spoke, Mila pushed Timothy aside and rushed at me, Her face twisted as she grabbed my hair and dragged me toward the balcony. I was shocked. This woman was even crazier than in my past life. Outside the hospital, a large crowd of zombies had already gathered, and she intended to throw me directly to them. Realizing her intent, I couldn't care less about my injuries and struggled fiercely, scratching her face in the process. "Ah, you bitch, how dare you ruin my face." The three who had been merely watching until now couldn't stand by any longer. William reacted the fastest, rushing over to push me away with such force that I almost fell off the balcony. I clenched my teeth, holding back any cries of pain, my hands tightly gripping the balcony's edge, my gaze landing on a stunned Victor. During my struggle with Mila, she had torn my clothes. If only the timing had been right, I would have laughed out loud. Little did Mila know, she had inadvertently revealed my birthmark herself at that moment. Victor was staring intensely at the inside of my arm, at the torn spot. He had finally noticed my birthmark. Mila saw it too, her pupils shrinking, her face draining of color. Now she was truly panicked, pushing William aside, her eyes red as she rushed at me again, her face contorted in rage as she aimed a kick at my head. "Bitch, go die." Her foot barely missed my face, but the next second, Victor pulled her away. Mila fell hard to the ground, her face bloodied. But Victor didn't spare her another glance. My body hung over the edge of the balcony, and he was holding onto my hand tightly. "Don't let go, hold tight to me." Timothy, with his keen eyes, noticed in shock. His eyes widened, and he scrambled and crawled over to me, grabbing my other hand. Only William was still in the dark because, from start to finish, his eyes were only on Mila, his precious little sister. At that moment, he was holding the injured Mila in his arms, seemingly talking to Victor. But his eyes, filled with hostility, were fixed on me. "Big brother, have you all gone mad? You believe what this wretch says." However, this time neither Victor nor Timothy paid him any heed. Victor, with his impressive strength, easily pulled me back from the edge of the balcony. Timothy, donned in his white coat, immediately carried me back to the hospital room. Only when I lay down safely did my heart start racing wildly. I admit, there was an element of gambling in what I did. Had there been any slight mishap, I would have been doomed, but thankfully, fortune was on my side. Mila's attempt had backfired spectacularly. Her eagerness to eliminate me only raised Victor's suspicions. Had it not been for his military background, he might have wanted to tear my clothes off to check for himself right then and there, as I was calming myself. Timothy took my hand and twisted my arm around. My birthmark was fully exposed. This time it was clearly visible, and Timothy's voice trembled as he spoke. How do you have this birthmark?" His voice was loud, drawing William's attention as well. Mila's face turned as white as a sheet. She probably never imagined from the start that I was the legitimate young lady of Timothy's family. She instinctively tightened her grip on William's hand, positioning herself to block his view. Trying to salvage the situation. "Second brother, listen to me, she's a fraud. I told her about the birthmark at school before, she must have faked it somehow. But this time, William, who usually indulged his sister, did not spare her another glance. He moved past Mila to my bedside, and upon seeing the birthmark on my arm, his face first registered shock, then suspicion. Big brother, third brother, Mila does have a point. Although the site of her birthmark was burnt and cannot be verified. But don't forget, Mila has undergone DNA testing." Mila's eyes lit up at this, nodding vigorously. "Yes, before Dad passed away, I had a paternity test with him. There's no way it's fake." As the situation unfolded just as I had hoped, drawing attention to the DNA, a slight smile curled at the corners of my mouth. The test results were indeed real, but that doesn't mean the samples tested were actually from Mila. Mila's mother worked as a maid for Timothy's family. 5 years after my disappearance, her nanny mother harbored ill intentions. She burned the inside of Mila's arm, claiming the birthmark was destroyed, and then, taking advantage of her position, collected hair samples from William and others to send for testing. That's why Mila was identified as a biological relative, and all this was what Mila, proud and triumphant, told me after pushing me towards a horde of zombies in my previous life. But this time, Mila won't be able to deceive everyone so easily. I remained silent, quietly looking towards Victor. Victor, a military man with strong insight and a hefty dose of suspicion, had discovered many imposters claiming to be the young lady of Timothy's family in the past, and none had met a good end, especially since his beloved sister Mila had just slandered me as a criminal spreading a zombie virus. If I had shown my birthmark in the mini-market, Mila would only have to say, "She mentioned the birthmark to me before. This wretch must have remembered and possibly tattooed it on." Then, with Victor's suspicions and William's intervention, I would have had no chance to verify the DNA. Now, however, Mila had been too eager to silence me, an action that would undoubtedly arouse Victor's suspicions. He would most likely suggest retesting. Sure enough, after giving Mila a glance, Victor proposed, "Let's test the DNA again." Timothy also nodded. his face still wearing a gentle expression. This time, I will conduct the test personally. Upon hearing this, Mila finally realized this was indeed her true intention. She panicked immediately, instinctively searching for a lifeline nearby. She clutched desperately at the sleeve of William, who was beside her. You always cared for me the most, big brother. You believe me, right? However, William looked at her indifferently and then brushed her hand away. I happened to witness this scene and almost couldn't help laughing out loud. Mila's face was a picture of shock, her fingertips trembling. With no other option, she tried to cast a pleading look towards Victor. Unfortunately for her, Victor's gaze was entirely fixed on me, not sparing her even a glance. Soon, Timothy returned with the test results. Unsurprisingly, Mila had no connection whatsoever with them. Gone was her earlier domineering attitude when she used to bully me. Now, she sat on the floor, her face the epitome of defeat. William, too, was momentarily dazed upon hearing the results, but he quickly regained his composure. He glanced at the marks on my neck and adjusted his skewed wire-rimmed glasses. Then, suddenly, he knelt before my hospital bed. I'm sorry, little sister, I was wrong. Today is your birthday. Can you please not be mad at Big Brother? Oh, and here's the inheritance agreement that Dad left for you. Come on, sign it. William eagerly pulled out the $1 billion inheritance agreement, flipping it open to the page where I needed to sign. He even thoughtfully brought me the ink pad and pen. Looking at the inheritance agreement, I compliantly began to sign. As for forgiving him, I didn't even bring it up. After signing, I looked up at Mila. Mila was staring intensely at me, her eyes full of reluctance. After all, she and her mother had schemed for so long just for this vast inheritance, but now their hopes were dashed. Seeing Mila's breathing become erratic, I sensed something was wrong. Sure enough, the next second she lunged at me with a ferocious expression. That's mine, you wretch. But before she could even touch my clothes, Victor had already pinned her down on the floor. Her mouth violently hit the floor, knocking out 2 of her front teeth, blood filling her mouth. I looked down at Mila, a sweet smile on my face, and pressed my fingerprint in front of her, but that was not enough. Mila, how does it feel to be pinned down on the ground? When you cut my hair, wrote wretch on me, and forced my head down to drink toilet water, you never thought you would end up like this, did you? Hearing my words, Timothy and his brothers, all protective of their sister, instantly turned pale and their looks towards Mila became harsh. Ah, how the tables have turned. With a grim expression, Victor dragged Mila towards the bathroom. It's too dangerous to keep the infected here. I'll lock her up first. Through the closing bathroom door, I heard Mila's gulping sounds and her pleas for mercy. At this moment, William came to my side, looking at me appeasingly. Little sister, have you calmed down? I slowly put away the agreement, smiling at him. Seems like you're pacifying the wrong person. I'm just a wretch. Your precious little sister is in the bathroom. Seeing my cold demeanor, William sighed lightly, his tone filled with helplessness. Are you still angry because Big Brother was rough with you before? I couldn't help but laugh. So, nearly beating someone to death is called being rough. Maybe I should be rough with you too. William choked on my words, momentarily lost for words. With regret on his face, he asked, Sister, what do you want me to do before you'll calm down? I flashed William a brilliant smile. Simple, just go die. William choked up instantly. Adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses awkwardly, I ignored him. Intending to get out of bed and leave the room, Timothy quickly intervened. With a worried expression on his gentle face, he said, Sister, don't move, you're still injured. I need to give you a thorough medical examination soon. I responded to Timothy with a sarcastic smile. Don't bother, a malicious person like me doesn't deserve precious medicine. Timothy's expression changed drastically, and he apologized softly. I'm sorry, it's okay if you hate me, but your health is what's most important. Can you please not stay angry for now? In my previous life, Timothy did bandage me up, and he was also a key player in vaccine and serum research. I gave him a slightly warmer look, but that didn't mean I wanted to stay with them. These injuries aren't enough to kill me. Please move. I want to go back to my supermarket. Victor, who had just come out of the bathroom, immediately blocked my way when he heard me. Sister, you can't go out. The noise earlier has attracted a horde of zombies downstairs, but I just shrugged indifferently. Outside might be dangerous, but it's still better than being here, where I'm seen as a terrorist spreading the zombie virus. Hearing this, a look of shame appeared on Victor's resolute face. He bowed deeply, apologizing sincerely. I was wrong, sister. You can punish me however you want. I won't complain. Hearing this, William suddenly took off his glasses and slapped himself hard. I was startled to see his face quickly swell and blood seep from the corner of his mouth. Yet, he looked at me pleadingly. Sister, does this help calm you down? I remained silent, and William slapped himself again. Then I'll keep going until you're no longer angry. The sound of slaps echoed in the hospital room, but I only glanced at William before looking away. Just a few slaps and he thinks he can be forgiven. I still vividly remember the pain of being bitten by zombies in my past life. If apologies were enough, we wouldn't need police. If you want to atone, maybe in your next life. With that, I ignored Victor and tried to leave, but after only a few steps, I felt dizzy and began to falter uncontrollably. I heard 3 anxious voices calling out sister, then I knew nothing more. When I woke up again, I found all my wounds were properly bandaged. Dressed in a clean hospital gown, I lay in a VIP hospital room that could rival a 5-star hotel. 3 exhausted-looking figures stayed by my bedside, appearing as if they hadn't slept all night. Seeing me awake, they crowded around like large dogs, fussing over me with concern. Victor, with his usually icy demeanor, showed a touch of worry. Sister, does it still hurt? William, with a fading handprint on his scholarly face, asked cautiously, Sister, do you still feel dizzy? Timothy, pushing the others aside, brought a bowl of porridge to me. Sophia, you must be hungry, right? Have some bird's nest porridge to replenish your strength. Looking at the thick, milky porridge, fragrant and undoubtedly expensive, I didn't hesitate to dig in. After taking the bowl, I started eating. Having had the porridge, I felt my strength was almost fully restored. It seems that during the time I was unconscious, Timothy must have used the best medicine on me. Now my head isn't spinning anymore, though the wounds on my body still hurt. However, it didn't hinder my movement. I rolled out of bed, put on my shoes, and prepared to leave. Timothy hurriedly stopped me. Sophia, you need to rest now. Don't move around. I pushed him away expressionlessly. No need. Step aside. I want to go home. Hearing this, Victor looked troubled. Sister, if you're uncomfortable staying here, I'll take you back to our place, I scoffed. That's Timothy's family's place. Not my home. My home is that small supermarket you almost ran over. That small supermarket was my foster mother's pride and joy. I had also invested $300,000 to reinforce it and stocked it with many supplies. From the beginning, I only planned to take refuge in my small supermarket. Hearing me say this, the 3 of them, Victor included, showed faces full of guilt, rightly so. Before our mother passed away, they swore to protect me, but not only did they fail to protect me, they almost got me killed. Now, how could they have the face to stop me? Victor sighed, as if he had made a decision. All right, I'll take you. But the thought of Victor having me thrown into the trunk of a car, jostling my injured body, infuriated me. No need. I can't enjoy such hospitality. Seeing that I refused Victor, William immediately pulled Victor aside. Right, Big Brother's armored car is really uncomfortable to sit in. Sister, why don't you take the second brother's helicopter? I completely ignored William and looked towards Timothy, who had shown me a bit of kindness before I died in my previous life. Hey, you take me. I saw Timothy obviously startled for a moment, while Victor and William both cast envious and jealous glances at him. Timothy's face broke into a flattered smile and he said to me, all right, I'll arrange it right away. I went to the small supermarket in Timothy's Bentley. Victor's armored vehicles cleared the way for us, drawing away the zombies in the area. William's helicopter hovered above our heads. However, when I saw the small supermarket, I was taken aback. My small supermarket had completely transformed. What was once a messy store was now clean and tidy, with Victor's men moving in sturdy new shelves. They were delivering boxes of supplies, all expensive ingredients that I wouldn't even dare to touch in the supermarket. Luxuries like Australian lobsters, abalone, ham, were only the less impressive items. Most were foods I couldn't name, but which reeked of money. The appliances in the supermarket had all been upgraded to smart devices. Timothy followed me into the supermarket, explaining as we went, Sophia, seeing that the food in your supermarket was not very healthy, I took the liberty of changing it. If you don't like it, just tell me. As the saying goes, only a fool would refuse good fortune that comes their way. I wasn't about to turn down these compensations, which I deserved. I didn't hold back at all. Then send more. I love to eat. I walked around the supermarket and when I stepped out, I saw Victor also moving things inside. I immediately stopped him. You're not allowed in. Victor retracted his step, standing awkwardly at the entrance. He looked at me, then at Timothy who had followed inside. Sister, if my third brother can get in, why can't my eldest? I said with a cold laugh. It's my choice. And if I don't let you in? Are you going to smash up my little supermarket again? Victor knew I still held a grudge. He set down his goods on the ground, his expression tinged with melancholy. Unsurprisingly, I detected envy in his gaze towards Timothy. For these 3 brothers, born solely for their sister's sake, their sister was everything. My attitude deeply affected their emotions. I knew that to truly torment someone, physical pain was far from sufficient. I would neither forgive them nor would I ever call them brother. I intended to make them live forever in guilt towards me, spending their lives in repentance. Just then, William arrived. He smiled at me indulgently. Little sister, your second brother noticed you were short on clothes and picked some out especially for you. Not sure if you'll like them. As he spoke, he began to bring in designer clothes from brands like Chanel and Hermes, but I didn't give him the chance. I stepped forward and kicked over the clothes rack, sending the expensive garments tumbling to the ground. I walked over the clothes, ignoring William completely, not even sparing him a glance. Pointing at the clothes on the floor, I flashed a radiant smile at Victor's soldiers. Brothers, could you help me clean up this trash? It's quite in the way. As expected, the moment they heard me call them brothers, their faces turned green with distress. In the blink of an eye, I had been lying low in this post-apocalyptic world for a month. Usually, my days were filled with watching dramas, movies, eating, and sleeping. Except for the nuisance of those three bothersome brothers visiting the supermarket, I was almost free of worries. I continued to ignore William, even though he had been kneeling outside the supermarket for a month. I hadn't looked at him even once. Anything he sent my way, I treated like trash and discarded. William had once sworn to our mother that he would ensure I lived a wealthy, carefree life like a little princess. However, whether now or in the future, I would not accept a penny from him, nor acknowledge him as my brother. As for Victor, after applying to be discharged, he stood guard at the supermarket daily, looking like a security guard. I knew he loved his military career, but his initial intention was to fulfill a promise to our mother, to protect me. He failed, and now he was here to atone. Occasionally, when I was in a good mood, I would speak to him, but he still couldn't come close to me or step inside my supermarket. However, I could tell he was already quite content. Then there was Timothy, whose healing hands were now broken. He had become a doctor to ensure I could live a pain-free, smooth life. However, when I appeared before him injured, he failed to heal me. He had promised our mother but hadn't been able to fulfill it, so he was overwhelmed with shame and had broken his most precious and important hands as a doctor. When I heard this news, I found it both amusing and frustrating. Fortunately, his hands could still be healed. It wasn't that I felt sorry for him, I just wanted him to quickly develop the serum and vaccine, so I took the initiative to contact him to discuss matters in the supermarket, and lately, he had been visiting quite frequently. Seeing him come in to talk to me, Victor and William outside the supermarket would look at him with resentful eyes. This pleased me greatly. I had quite a bit of data about the serum and vaccine from my past life. With my prompts, Timothy and his research team managed to develop the serum a month ahead of schedule. Just now, Timothy sent me a message saying the vaccine was also ready to be released. He planned to name it after me, to let the whole world know that I had also made a contribution. I couldn't help but think of Mila from my past life, who was also admired much like I am now. The day I left the hospital, Victor and the others asked me what to do with Mila. I told them to just let her go. It's not that I'm saintly, rather, I wanted Mila to experience the struggle of hiding and barely surviving in this apocalyptic world. I wondered how many days Mila, stripped of her Missy status and without her brother's protection, could survive in such an end time. That day, Timothy had sprayed her with a suppressant, so she probably hadn't turned into a zombie yet. I knew her nanny mom was recently devoured alive by zombies, but I had no idea how Mila was doing now. As I was munching on chips and planning to continue binge-watching my show, a burst of shouting and beating suddenly came from outside the mini-mart. "Mila, you wretch, I'm going to kill you." Startled, I looked through the glass door of the supermarket and saw a creature that could hardly be called human. Mila's previously smooth long hair now looked as if it had been gnawed by dogs, and her dirty face was marked with the word bitch. Her leg was broken, her body was skinny and bony, riddled with wounds large and small, oozing pus and stench, with not a single piece of intact flesh. If someone hadn't called her Mila, I wouldn't have recognized her at that moment. Mila was frantically stuffing a dirty bun into her mouth. Her former lackey tried to pry her mouth open to take it out. Mila resisted, and the lackey brutally hit her on the head. Mila was no match for the lackey and, after being beaten bloody, lay motionless on the ground, sitting comfortably on the couch. I took another bite of my chips and watched silently. After a while, I picked up the remote and closed the curtain of the supermarket door, then played the song Good Days at full volume.